want to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Nope, we can hear you, and I guess that means you can hear me as well, which is good.
I'll be quiet until my time comes.
Give a couple more minutes here as people dial in, since it's just barely 7 o'clock.
And Mayor Larson, I'm going to have Macy jump off and try to jump back on since it's a double me situation again.
I saw her name had a different face attached to it.
Yeah,
or your name.
I hope we're not stuck like Cynthia, but we'll find out.
And it's Lindsay here. My WebEx meeting is taking a very long time to boot up.
You must be colon user 2.
I must be.
Okay.
I'm changing the name now. Yeah, so Macy, we're gonna have to contact WebEx and have them resolve that.
We got multiple Mirandas tonight. All right. Well, I believe we have the entire Board of Trustees with us this evening. So welcome, everyone. And at 7:01 p.m. on Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, we'll call to order this meeting of the Town of Nederland Board of Trustees. Macy, if you'd please call the roll.
Mayor Larson.
Here.
Trustee Taylor.
Here.
Trustee Apt.
Here.
Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover. Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover.
Here.
Thank you. Trustee Danforth.
Here.
And Trustee Corvalin.
Here.
All right, welcome everyone. We have 2 items on the consent agenda, the warrants and the minutes. If everyone has any questions regarding either or a motion to approve. I'm helping you out right now.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion from Trustee Taylor. Do we have a second?
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
And a second from Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Eric.
Macy, please call the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover.
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Trustee Apt.
Yes.
Mayor Larson.
Yes.
Trustee Danforth.
Yes.
Trustee Corvalin.
Yes.
And Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Consent agenda is passed. Moving on to public comment on non-agenda items. If anyone would like to speak on something we're not addressing later in tonight's agenda, now will be your chance. You can have 3 minutes after identifying yourself and whether you're a town resident or not. And just catch my eye somehow. Speak up, start dancing on video. I am not seeing or hearing anyone, so we will move on into our informational items. And I believe we have a special guest with us this evening for our first informational item, our very own County Commissioner, Claire Levy, who has actually represented us for a long time up here. She was our State House representative for 7 years, I think, something like that, about a decade ago. So Claire, welcome. Welcome to Nederland again, virtually this time.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I think I am here at your invitation, but I'll say a few words about what I think I'm here for. But I'm really happy to talk with you about anything. So yes, I did represent House District 13, got elected in 2006, and left off. Well, I would have been term limited after the 2014 session. I did leave office after the 2013 session, and did some things in between, and now I'm a county commissioner. But what I was invited to just speak with you about is the redistricting process and what the result of that process has been for Nederland. And I can go into as much detail as you're interested in, or as little. I know, these meetings, usually you have a lot of things on your agenda, and I don't want to talk about things that aren't interesting to you. But I do want to say before I attend to that I was up in Nederland. It was a beautiful day. It was maybe a month and a half ago, and I got to tour the food pantry. I spent some time at the farmers market, and I was up there with Commissioner Lochamin, and we were there to, first of all, just find out about the needs of the food pantry, but and all the needs, the increased community needs that the food pantry was able to try to meet during COVID, when people couldn't work and when it was difficult to travel and get around to meet their needs, and then go to the farmers market to distribute cards encouraging people to respond to a county questionnaire around ARPA needs, the American Rescue Plan Act, which is providing over $60 million to Boulder County to spend to address the results of the pandemic and the needs that the community has. And so I was up there. That's the most recent time I was up around Nederland, just walking around and talking to people at the farmers market. And we'll be making some decisions about how to use those ARPA dollars here very soon. I suspect, and actually tomorrow we're going to have a public meeting about what all of those surveys have told us about what the community feels the needs are. And what we're hearing from all kinds of different sectors is the affordability of housing, the availability of mental health, behavioral health, substance use disorder services, childcare and the affordability of it, or the availability of it, because you can't find it. And then just sort of ongoing economic recovery issues. The fact that a lot of people spent down their savings to try to stay in their homes and try to continue to meet their needs during a time in which they weren't able to earn. So this will be something that the commissioners will be focusing on between now and the end of the year, and then probably into the next year, as we really think about what programs will help us address the needs that emerge from that. So what I wanted to come and just share with you, and then take questions about, if you're interested, is where did we end up in redistricting? And the county commissioners did engage very, very actively in this process. And we had two different things going on, because every 10 years when the decennial census comes out, according to the Constitution, the congressional district maps have to be redrawn and the state legislative maps are redrawn. And what was different this time from all previous times is that because of constitutional amendments that were passed 2 years ago, this was done by a totally independent, nonpartisan redistricting commission. And what that commission came up with then went to the Colorado Supreme Court to be either approved or rejected based on the criteria that were in the constitutional amendments. There were two, Amendment Y and Amendment Z. And the Supreme Court has approved those maps. And so it's all done now. It's all over but the shouting, as we say. And so as Boulder County engaged in this process, both on the congressional maps and the state legislative maps, the number one thing we were trying to do is keep Boulder County whole, so that we maximize the political muscle we have. And because we know that we're a community of interest and people in Ned commute to Boulder for jobs, your kids go to Boulder Valley schools, your healthcare, you may get your healthcare in Boulder or not, but you have a lot of relationships, primarily within Boulder County. And there were some versions of the congressional district maps that had Western Boulder County, including Nederland, in the 3rd congressional district, which is an overwhelmingly Republican district, which was always going to be Republican, even though it may have, arguably looked competitive. And so we vigorously resisted that map, arguing that the community of Nederland, surrounding areas, Jamestown, Ward, the mountain areas, really effectively were going to lose their representation in Congress if they were represented by a district. This is Lauren Boebert's 3rd congressional district that primarily was Western Slope and very, very conservative. So we were successful, and I'm not going to say we achieved that victory. It was a lot of people, and frankly, it just never made any sense. So on the congressional side, things are good. Boulder County was kept whole. Boulder County is still in the 2nd congressional district, represented by Joe Neguse, who's running for re-election. On the state legislative side, we went through a lot of different twists and turns and machinations, some of which divided Boulder County. We argued to reunite Boulder County. We thought we were good, and then another map would come along that divided Boulder County. On the House side, Nederland was in the 13th House district, out of the 13th House district. And what I wanted to talk to you about here is that while House District 13 remained intact, your community, along with the mountain areas of Boulder County, are now in a district that is dominated by Larimer County. It's in the Senate, in the state Senate, Senate District 15. And it's an open seat. But I just wanted to talk about the implications of that map. Boulder County commissioners sent an email to, I think my laptop's going to kick me out and reboot. But Boulder County commissioners did send an email to the town board of Nederland and all the communities within Boulder County saying that we will do everything we can to vigorously represent you in the Colorado legislature and reach out and try to form relationships with your representative in the Senate. But I just wanted to come to you and explain the implications of that map. And the primary implication, and you are all politically active people, and you're probably very well aware of this, though, is that the Boulder County portion of the population is sort of negligible. Not sort of, it is numerically negligible. It's like 13 to 15% of the total population of the district. Larimer County is the dominant population center, and the map has been drawn such that the folks that you may feel the strongest community of interest with in Larimer County are not in Senate District 15. And so it's a district, I'm going to get to the breakdown in the district here on my laptop, which you can't see. But it's a district that, in terms of the last 8 elections, starting with the Senate election in 2016, if you take the results on a precinct by precinct basis, of those elections, it ends up just dead even. It's a theoretically on the map, a completely competitive district. But if you look at specific races and how they broke down in terms of D and R, and the ones that are maybe most indicative of how this seat may go, there's a very, very good chance that that you're going to be represented by a Republican. Now, I don't know the party breakdown of the Nederland Board of Trustees, because you're nonpartisan, but I know generally the issues that you're interested in, because we hear about them and we care about them. So it's quite likely that there will be a Republican in Senate District 15. We will do our best to reach out, create a relationship, advocate for the interests that you have, and make sure your interests are represented. But I just wanted to come to you and just share what happened with the redistricting process, and I'm really just here to answer questions and shed any light on that I can.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, and I appreciate the help the Boulder County Commissioners gave with the congressional redistricting. That was something we were certainly very active in as well when we saw that first map come out. And the House map definitely was one of those last minute surprises, and but appreciate what the Boulder County Commissioners tried to do for us and tried to keep us in there in the county. But it'll be an interesting to see how this goes moving forward. I'm going to throw this open to the trustees. Do you have any questions for Commissioner Levy about the redistricting process or results or what we're looking at moving forward?
I'm just curious, are we going to still, this is Tanya Corvalon, are we still going to be represented by the same representative that's representing the city of Boulder?
No.
In the House of
No.
Representatives, well, in the House, yes. That would be Representative Judy Amabile.
Right.
So she will continue to be your representative in the House.
Mhm.
In the Senate, it's an open seat. And so now that the maps are final, I mean, actually, there's an opportunity to run for office. I don't know who's going to be your state senator.
But
Hint, anyone who wants to, move up and run for state senate from the Nederland Board of Trustees, this is a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Tanya.
Oh, that's okay. I was just like, but this district is new and it does not include City of Boulder. It includes like Estes and you said Laramie and
Larimer.
And that's
Larimer,
why
yeah, Larimer County, but not the city of Fort Collins.
But like Loveland or
Yeah.
There's a map in our packet that isn't great to zoom in, but I can send
like
you.
visual. I'm sure it's in there.
Yeah.
I'm just visualizing it right now. So yeah, the most likely that would be a Republican. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And I've got the map in front of me. I'm zooming in. The maps that you can look at don't have a lot geographic boundaries. They're not real obvious. You can sort of guess. But it's you've got Loveland and Larimer County, but not the town of Fort Collins.
Right, so it's like Estes Park, I think it's Loveland, and everything pretty much up to the Wyoming border, outside to the west of Fort Collins.
Yeah. Oh wait, you've got
This is the House map.
that's the House map. Yeah, you want the Senate map.
Right, the Senate map's actually not in our packet, I don't think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think the House map is okay. Yeah.
Other questions from the trustees?
Yeah, it does seem confusing that major metropolitan center sort of the major population center of this district is going to be Loveland, which is not a town that I think many folks have a day-to-day relationship with. And so I guess I wonder if we're going to have to, I guess functionally, I guess I wonder how Boulder County commissioners kind of propose to advocate on our behalf in that sense. Like, are we going to have to be talking to people in Loveland, or are we going to just go directly to whoever that state rep might be? I just didn't know if you had a strategy.
Well,
how
you know, you are your own best advocates, but I think, no, I don't, you know, there may be times when it is good to try to see if you can find some common ground with people in Loveland. Your most likely common ground might be with the people up in the mountainous parts of Larimer County around issues around water and wildfire mitigation and relationships with the U.S. Forest Service and things like that. But I think your best strategy is probably to create a direct relationship with whoever becomes the state senator. You know, while it's maybe I don't have the right spreadsheet in front of me anymore, but you know, in the neighborhood of 15% of the district population. If the rest of the population is pretty dispersed and doesn't really coalesce around a single issue either, you know, that can become a pretty significant base of advocacy. But no, I think having a direct relationship is probably going to be the best option. And you know, we do have lobbyists that we contract with at the Capitol. We have our own policy staff, and so we'll try to be your voice, but it's always good to try to create those relationships yourself.
Yeah, I think not one of the most challenging, but one of the challenging things about this is that a lot of those areas that are going to be in our district are they are actually rural areas where we are rural for all intents and purposes functionally, but we're not designated as rural under most kind of definitions of that. And so that puts us in an awkward position where we don't actually share the same designation. So even though we might have the same interests, it's hard to team up with other rural communities because we're actually part of a major metropolitan area.
Yeah.
So that does become challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a challenging situation, and you know, just unsolicited editorial observation here on my part is that while I think that the constitutional amendments that led to this nonpartisan redistricting process had some really good goals. The goal was to prevent hyperpartisan gerrymandering, which we've seen a lot of in other states. In my experience in the legislature and observing these processes, it was not a really big problem in Colorado because we tended to have divided control. And what we had in having redistricting in the hands of people who are not political is that they don't understand the dynamics of political representation. And you know, I've had many people say to me who are in the data world, well, you could easily write an algorithm for, you know, creating districts of numerical, you know, population equality, and why don't you just do that? But you know, the very first maps that this commission came up with were of that nature, that divided communities of interest, which are the most dominant thing you want to have. You want to be represented by somebody who shares your feelings, who's going to actually represent you. And so I think in the quest for to avoid something that, in my opinion, wasn't really a problem in Colorado, they've sort of created another problem, which is that the process was dominated, you know, just really didn't understand the nature of representation. And I just opened up the oh no, it's not the spreadsheet I wanted. On the legislative redistricting website, you can see a lot of different ways to look at the data for the district. Here, I wanted to get the exact numbers of how much of this is Larimer County versus Boulder County. But anyway, you're welcome. You can find that and look at it at your leisure. I'm just happy to entertain any other questions that you might have.
Yeah, Claire, this is Julian Taylor. Thank you very much for the explanation. That's very useful. It does strike me, though, that starting with a map generated by an algorithm and then allowing citizens to intervene and present their arguments and then have that map adjusted, that's not a horrible way to do it. Yeah, we may have missed out on the Senate, but that's not so bad. I'm feeling pretty good about the process as I look at it.
Well, good. Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, that's no problem with that as a starting point. But, we just have to understand that, some of the comments we wrote, particularly with regard to the congressional map, had to do with the fact that the kinds of things that you would want your member of Congress to advocate around might be additional funding for RTD, because that might be the way you or your kids get to work or school. And somebody that represents the vast Western Slope all the way up to, the Wyoming and Utah borders and down to New Mexico may not have the kind of relationship it takes to help you with those transit needs. The healthcare needs in Nederland and where you go and get your healthcare are going to be very different than the interests of somebody on the Western Slope. So that was a really, really stark situation. This one is admittedly not that stark, and it's not my place to to say whether it's good or bad for you. Time will tell, and it's an opportunity to create relationships and educate somebody about the needs of an area that they may not be that familiar with. And as we said at the outset, there are a lot of things that you do have in common. The issue of wildfire, the issue of water in your community, just the issue of transportation connections, and the fact that when you live in a mountainous environment, you've got canyons and that dictate what your transportation connection options are, and those mountainous regions of Larimer County share those constraints as well.
Any other questions?
I see one over here, Deb. Yeah. I don't know if I'm allowed to call on you.
Guess I don't see what you're seeing.
Well, she was waving. Maybe just being friendly.
Yeah. Well, Claire, again, thank you so much for coming up and explaining this to us. It's unfortunate that they broke up Boulder County, but I think it's also could be an opportunity. So we'll try and do our best to work with our new senator, state senator, whomever that should end up to be, and really glad to hear you guys will continue to work for all Boulder County, even if we're no longer in your same Senate districts.
Definitely. And that's the main message. So, okay. Well, thanks for making time for me on your agenda.
Yeah. Thank you much, and have a good evening.
Okay. All right. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, we're going to move into our action items for this evening, and I believe our first action item is going to be introduced. I think we have a member of SAB here to introduce it. Melody Baumhofer is on the line. See Melody B. I think you're going to introduce this in lieu of Erica, who couldn't join us this evening.
Yeah, exactly. Erica is working on her I think, graduate level work on environmental sustainability and management and that kind of stuff. So we're happy she's going to do that. So we are, I'm Melody Baumhover. I'm the chair of the Sustainability Advisory Board. And we are coming before you tonight because we are applying for the Environmental Sustainability Matching Grant with Boulder County again. In the past, we've used this to fund the sustainability coordinator position, so we're asking to continue that. We are asking that the BOT meet that $15,000 grant with a $15,000 cash match towards paying for the position, as well as continuing the $3,750 match that has been in kind as far as providing space and various other things. And so really I'm here to answer any questions you might have about this, give you guys any background you might want. And I'll just finish off by stating for the record that having a full-time sustainability coordinator has been a goal of the Sustainability Advisory Board and the Sustainability Action Plan since about 2012. So we are, fulfilling that. We're getting closer and closer as we keep increasing the wage for this position. And it really has been crucial to the cohesion of all of our projects to have a central position and a central person that can help make sure all these projects actually get done and check in with people and just have that one continuity source for all of this information. So I'll leave it there.
Mayor Larson, it's Miranda. I'd like to just jump in to offer a quick clarification. So the Board of Trustees has already agreed to move forward with setting aside $15,000 as the match for this grant. What the Sustainability Advisory Board is asking is that you consider also including the $3,750 that has historically been the match for a total of $18,750. That is why we put this before the budget, because that would of course impact the following conversation. But I wanted to clarify that the full ask they're asking for is $18,750.
And the modification to the 2022 budget would just be that 3750 because
Correct.
we are so really tonight we're discussing whether or not to add $4,000 more to the match.
Exactly.
And is that would that 4,000 still be coming from the public work budget?
So yes, that would still, so the $15,000 is what the Board of Trustees decided to do when we discussed the new positions. And so this, yes, is $33,750 would be from Public Works.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Melody and Miranda for clarifying. Just go down if there's any questions from the Board of Trustees for either Melody or for Miranda, and we'll begin with Trustee Apt.
I don't really have any questions. I think it's a great investment in someone who's done a superb job and has worked well beyond his part-time hours and gotten good grants for us, is applying for more grants. And I think anything we can do to retain Garrett is well worth the investment because it benefits Nederland in general. So it's very worthwhile, in my opinion.
Okay.
Thanks to SAB for bringing this forward.
Trustee Danforth?
Of this being just a modification to something we already agreed to, I don't see a problem with that small increase and for such an important position. So I'm certainly for it.
Okay. Trustee Corvalin?
Is this going to impact our ability to hire a Parks and Rec coordinator like we were hoping, or a grant coordinator?
No, this would not.
Okay, then I'm fine.
Okay. Trustee Coombs Ismail?
I'm fine with it. I would just like to ask, is the additional 3750 being requested to add more hours for this position, or is it to cover other expenses?
It'd be to allow more hours.
Okay.
Yeah, currently Garrett, the sustainability coordinator, does about 10 hours a week. By having the increase even to 15 or potentially to 18 allows that person to do just that much more work in a month.
Right. So yeah, it's not to cover
Actually, fair-
some kind of administrative expense.
Right, correct. It would all be into the pool. So if Boulder County matched the 15, we'd be then looking at that's kind of the full match of 33,750 would be the year rate, which then gets broken down into a monthly average. And then from there, the contract dictates how many hours we expect for what that monthly rate is.
Got it. Thank you.
Trustee Taylor?
I certainly agree that Garrett has been an excellent asset to the town. I'm just looking at the 3750 and thinking that seems kind of an arbitrary thing. I mean, is this an annual thing? Would we be, is the plan to contribute this annual?
So yeah,
Monthly-
the 3,000, oh, sorry. The 3,750 was the annual match.
Right.
Oh. I think Trustee Taylor, you're cutting out and I'm interrupting.
We've lost Miranda. Right.
Yeah,
or
no,
we've lost me.
you're breaking up pretty badly there, Julian. We were losing. There you go.
All
Maybe
right,
try without the video.
I'm turning off my video. There we go. Okay, I was only going to say that it seemed I just didn't. It seemed an odd, sudden decision to drop in the 3750 in addition, and the fact that the idea of adding the 3750 because we did last year, because that was what we spent last year. I don't know. It just seemed a little arbitrary, and I'm not fully understanding where that number came from, other than through just the tradition of us putting in 3750 as a match.
I think
But-
that's exactly it. That's been the annual rate that we've been putting in for
Right.
our match. And so it's what SAP felt like we would continue forward with. It's 25%
Right.
of what they would contribute, which is the 15,000. And so that was just, we've done it the last 2 years. And so that seemed like the most appropriate number to continue forward with.
So the board decided on 15,000, and we're saying let's instead make that 18,750.
Correct. That's the request tonight.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover. Jonathan, you're on mute. Do you have any questions?
I was gonna say no questions. I would agree with Julian. It seems odd to throw what we've put at it the last 2 years on top of the drastic increase we've agreed to allocate to it, but there is no shortage of work for Garrick to do, or whoever this future individual could potentially be. So I'm in favor of this and have no questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's an action item, so I will open the floor up to public comment now. If anyone from the public would like to speak on the proposed increase to the 3750 increase to the sustainability coordinator, now would be your chance. Usual rules apply. Catch our attention. You can have up to 3 minutes. I am not hearing or seeing anyone. So I'll bring it back to the board and see if the board has any further thoughts or comments, or if anyone would like to make a motion regarding the funding request before us this evening.
I'd like to move approval of the funding request for the sustainability coordinator.
Can we, for the record, just indicate the amount in that motion?
18,050.
750, yeah.
750.
Okay, we have a motion to increase it to 18,750. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Trustee Danforth.
Yes, I'll second.
Trustee Danforth got in there a little bit hard with the second. So Macy, if you would please call the vote.
Trustee Abt,
Yes.
Trustee Danforth,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover,
Yes.
Trustee Taylor,
No.
Trustee Corvallin.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Macy. That passes. Thank you, Melody, for stepping in to introduce that this evening, and we look forward to all the more work from our sustainability coordinator next year.
Yeah, thank you guys, and a big shout out to Garrett. He's been great.
Indeed. Okay, we will move on to our budget. The draft budget this evening, draft budget hearing, and I believe I saw our town treasurer Rita Six on here to introduce this to us this evening and to step us through our 2022 draft budget.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, trustees, and members of the public.
You might, Rita, you might want to get closer to the mic. You're really faint.
Really? Is that better?
That's better. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. We're going to be doing the same thing we've been doing. We've had a couple of work sessions, a public meeting. The only change you'll see tonight is in the general fund, and I'll be going into more detail once we get to that slide. I will go through every slide again for those who are with us for the first time hearing about the 2022 budget, just to bring everybody up to speed. We'll go through the 5-year tax revenue trend. We'll touch base on the fund balances and reserve funds. We'll discuss the revenue and expenditures by fund. You'll then conduct your public hearing and open it up to the public as well as the board. And then at the end, we'll discuss the status of where we're at in the budget process. Next slide, please. Thank you. So for sales tax revenue and based on year-to-date 2021 actuals, we are still trending at 18% above 2020 figures, and staff is conservatively projecting that 2022 tax revenue will surpass the 2020 actuals by 6%. If tax revenue does surpass expectations, staff is recommending the establishment of a designated capital improvement fund. And as we discussed during prior meetings, the CIP are currently being paid through the operating budget. There's a couple of ways to go about that. We could, for example, use 5% of additional sales tax revenue over the 2020 actuals to set up a fund in 2022, or consider establishing a CIP fund in 2021 from excess revenue. Next slide. So our property tax revenue for 2022 is estimated at $614,000, and that's an increase of $102,000 or 20% when compared to 2021. These are preliminary dollar amounts, and we should be receiving the final assessment by the end of the month. Next slide, please. So we've been talking about the town's 2 types of funds during our last few budget meetings. We have the government funds and the proprietary funds. So first, we'll talk about the government funds. The government funds, which includes the general fund, the community center, the conservation trust fund, and street fund, they are principally supported by taxes and intergovernmental revenues. The general fund balance includes funds that are reserved as follows: $110,000 from Boulder County Housing Authority for Tungsten Village development in lieu of dedication of land for public use, and $36,500 from the parking lease with Eldora, which was approved by the board, so funds could be raised to be used for park improvements. We have a separate bank account for these reserved funds, and staff will not be using those funds without coming to the board first. Next slide, please. The town of Nederland maintains 2 proprietary funds, which are also called enterprise funds. They include our water and sewer funds. They are financed and operated in a manner similar to a private business enterprise. These are not your typical government funded by taxes type of programs and services. The idea is to pay for services provided through fees, which hasn't happened really, and we're having to use tax dollars, and also have had substantial amount of grants as well as 0% loans. The sewer and water fund also include reserves in their net position. In the sewer fund, we have $250,000 set aside for infrastructure and expansion, and in the water fund, that amount is $635,000. I will explain in more detail on how these reserves come about when we discuss the water and sewer fund budget. Next slide, please. As I had mentioned earlier, the general fund is the only fund that has changed from our last meeting. The board has approved adding a parks manager for $50,000, a grant writer for $30,000, and an increase of our match for the sustainability coordinator to $15,000, which now is obviously $18,750. With these changes, we are projecting a decrease of $71,000. I'm not going to go through all the details since we have done this already in our last 3 meetings, but of course, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them at the end of this presentation. All the capital expenditures are highlighted in blue, and you can see all these CIPs listed under separate slides as well. Next slide, please. Our community center is operating in the black. We are projecting an increase of $8,200. That's basically it for the community center. Next slide. Next, we have the water fund. No changes on that either. We are operating in the black, and you're projecting an increase of $13,000. I do want to talk just a little bit more about the PIF funds. Anything above our budgeted amounts gets added to that reserve account I was talking about earlier. For example, if you look at the PIF fees under other sources of cash, the 2020 budget amount of $37,000 versus the actual amount received of $197,150 equals a difference of $160,150. That is the amount that was added to the reserve account for 2020. Next slide, please. There are no changes, obviously, to the sewer fund. We have important capital improvements that need to be done, and with those, we end up with a decrease in the fund balance of $97,000. We are prepared to use reserve funds to balance the budget if our 2022 actuals do in fact show a decrease in the fund balance. And just like in the water fund, anything above the budgeted PIF fees got added to the reserve account, and for 2020 that was $8,000 for the sewer fund. Next slide. The street fund, again, also no changes from our last presentation. In 2022, the street fund is planning on using $7,000 more than they'll be bringing in, and they plan on pulling that from their fund balance that wasn't used last year if need be. Next slide. Same with the Conservation Trust Fund, no changes. Next slide. And also no changes at all to the Health and Human Services Fund. Which brings us to, next slide, please, the Downtown Development Authority. There are no changes, but I do want to go into a little bit more detail, mainly for the public. So the DDA has two different funding sources. The mill levy funds that come in at around $33,000 a year, that's what they use for their operating budget, to pay staff, legal, etc. Then they have the TIF funds, and that's the tax incremental funds, and that's what they use for capital project and programs. This year, the NDDA is projecting to spend $515,000 for capital improvements, and you can see that breakdown for that on a separate slide as well. Next slide. So these next three slides are a recap of the capital improvement priorities. And so the question is, before we discuss what's next on the budget calendar, do you want to hold the public hearing and see if there are any questions or comments?
Not hearing any, so we'll open it up to public comment at the end.
So Miranda, you want to do your, should we do the?
Yeah, Mary Larson, do you want us to jump to the fee schedule or do you want to keep them separate?
I say let's keep them separate since they're going to be two separate motions by the board, right?
And really there isn't an approval tonight. We had them as an action item because of the public hearing component, but really it's just a matter of moving forward.
Well, let's take public comment on the budget portion first, if anyone has any, and then we will introduce and discuss the proposed fee schedule, and take public comment on that as a separate item, since they're obviously related, but we have them on the agenda as two separate things, so we can keep them that way. So we'll throw this open to the public right now for any. First, did any trustees have questions? I think we gave a little time there. I didn't hear anyone speak up, but I don't want to jump the gun. Rita's definitely done a good job of presenting this over the last few months as she's been working on it. So I can't imagine there's too many, but if not, I will also throw this open to the public, and anyone from the public who would like to comment on the budget proposal. Now would be your chance, and as usual, catch our attention in some way. And you can have your 3 minutes. I'm not seeing any, which is testament to how well it was presented and has been over the last few months as well. So yeah, I guess we will continue forward with the presentations and then come back to more public comment for the fee structure.
Okay.
Miranda, you want to do fee schedule first, and then we can discuss the calendar? What do you think?
Yes, let me jump to the fee schedule. Get to my aim here. So while I don't have the fees, what I'll do is I'll actually show the fee schedule and then just kind of walk the board through these recommended changes. So bear with me while I get here. Okay, so series of recommended changes we have for you here, and I'm just going to go.
Can we zoom in on that? Can we zoom in on that just a little bit? Just it's a little small.
Definitely.
Oh, there we go. Oh,
there we go. Okay.
There we go. Thanks.
All right. So the first one that we're recommending is a sign modification fee change. So when a business contacts us about needing to change their sign, they've decided they want to do a new design or do something entirely different. We don't necessarily want to go through the process of charging them a full sign permit application fee, but it does take our time to review the sign parameters and make sure that it fits code. So we are recommending a $50 sign modification fee. So that's half of what would be a sign permit application for any major modifications to sign. The next change we're recommending, so there's nothing for document and record retrieval, nothing for marijuana, but in liquor, when we do a modification of premise, and an example for you is when Busey Brews came and did a modification of premise to extend their boundaries to include their beer garden, there is no fee for that on the local side. The applicant does need to pay a $150 state fee, but there is no fee locally. However, it does also require an extensive amount of staff time. And so the recommendation here is to mirror that fee and to charge $150 for a modification of premise application. We don't have anything for short-term rentals, but in building and zoning, we've seen quite a few variance applications this year, 2 parking variance applications, 1 water and sewer variance application, and tonight before you is a permitting fee variance. And there's nothing in the fee schedule right now to cover, again, kind of town staff time, but also to cover attorney time. All of those variances did require Attorney Madsen's oversight in supporting with drafting the resolution and looking over the applications themselves. Those were fees that town just absorbed. So we are recommending a $250 fee for those applications, which is very much in line with a lot of the fees we charge under building and zoning, and then $1,000 escrow. As a reminder, or for those of you who don't know, escrow is we do return any amount that's not used. So if we say only used $100, then $900 would be returned to the applicant once their application was complete. So once we've recorded it with Boulder County, whatever their resolution typically, we would then, after the recording fees were deducted, we would provide the remaining funds back to the applicant. For miscellaneous fees and permits, a returned check is actually $12 and not $25. So therefore we're asking for that change. And there is a fee when there's a stop payment charge of $35, and we have had requests for the stop payment, and it does seem appropriate to pass that on to the requester, that fee of $35. All right, so now let's get to the complicated one here. So under facility rentals and parks, what we've done is we've kind of broken this out a little bit more, where we now have a 1 to 20 people event. And what that is typically it's like your small birthday parties, your really intimate gatherings, and more often than not, we're doing a waiver of those fees. And so we just feel like let's just make that permanent. We are recommending no fee if the event is 4 hours or less, which is typically what we've seen throughout this year, is like birthday parties that are only about 3 hours. And then for an entire day event, still charging a $50 deposit that can be refunded if there is no damage or concern, but then no fee itself. And then we're recommending a change in regards to deposits. So a point of clarification here too is this is deposits only. We are recommending that for events that are 5,000 to 9,999 people, that deposit be $5,000. And that for deposit for events of 10,000 people or larger, that deposit be $10,000. And the feeling amongst town staff and in connecting with the Parks Recreation Open Space Advisory Board is this is to offset potential significant impact on these parks and public rental facilities. So while these are refundable, should there be no damage, this would cover any sort of substantial damage that comes from events of 10,000 people or higher. I mean, that's a huge impact in town. So to cover that. And then the fees themselves, we are recommending would stay the same. We have a series of reoccurring events that happen that are typically 20 people or less. So while we would waive the fees, we are requesting that the board consider a $50 per month reoccurring fee. So if, say, someone wanted to rent Chipeta for June, July, and August, they would pay $150 for that. And again, a lot of that covers the impact on the field itself. An example is volleyball. We did have to do quite a bit of reseeding following volleyball, and that event did occur over multiple months. We are also adding in a setup and breakdown fee. You know, someone rented, say, Chipeta or Gershio for 3 days, but needed to set up the 3 days prior and tear down the 3 days afterwards. We obviously can't rent the facilities on those days, so we are recommending $50 per day for that setup and breakdown. Okay, under Public Works, We recently identified with ProSab that Adopt a Bench doesn't have a fee. So as it stands right now, someone can just adopt a bench for free, fill out our paperwork, pick a bench, and then we usually charge $50 to cover town staff time. But there's no charge for the Adopt a Bench program itself. That is not typical in other municipalities. Most municipalities do charge for benches and use those funds to put back into the parks and their different assets. And so in reaching out to some municipalities, it seemed like the average was somewhere between $1,000 to $1,500. So here we're recommending $1,000 Adopt a Bench fee for the handful of benches we have left. Public Works also has a paving machine, as you all know, and so if there were to be a request for use of the paving machine, it's recommended to charge $200 per hour for that. We've got our water and sewer fees. I wasn't going to go into this in its entirety because this is reflective of what was in the rate study that Raftellus provided. So let me skip down to community center. So the last piece is our community. We rarely charge an administrative fee, so it just felt appropriate to remove that. That's kind of wrapped into the fees as charged. We also recommended removing kind of large event full building rental. It's pretty rare that we could even accommodate that given all the other programming that we have. So that has been removed. However, we did do an increase of the cleaning fee to $150 since that does take a substantial amount of staff time following like large wedding events to clean the facilities. We've got some miscellaneous charges here under community center that we'd like to call that instead of other rentals. The first one being removing that minimum component of $1,500 and changing that to a minimum of $500, but allowing then that discretion amongst the community center management team to determine what would be charged for a miscellaneous rental. And then we've seen an increase in requests to use the parking lot. Therefore, we do feel it's appropriate to do an increase of $5 for both renting the upper and side lots and also special short-term parking, which is RVs or trailers. The upper side lot is charged monthly and the special short-term is charged as a weekly fee. And last but not least is the police. So event organizers can contract with our police department to bring in officers outside of their regular days of work to work an event. Currently, the fee schedule is $65 to $85 per hour, depending on your ranking. We're recommending increasing that to $75 to $95, with the marshal making $95 an hour. That's the rate of charge. Sergeant is $85, and officer is $75. This is a then special duty rate paid back to the officer, not in its entirety. We do deduct an administrative fee to cover all of the payroll components of that, but a large majority of this is returned back to the officers. So that's why we're looking for that increase. Boulder County does charge similarly if we were to pull in their officers. So this just ensures that our officers are paid at a similar rate as some of their counterparts who would also be working an event. So that's the fee schedule in a nutshell, and I'd love to, I think Rita and I would love to hear your questions.
Great. Thank you for stepping us through that. Trustees, if you have questions for
I do have
Miranda
quite
or
a lot
Rita,
of notes on this one.
start us off then.
All right. I think that we need to rethink the rental of Chipeta and the ball field and the way that we write those leases, because I think that those deposits are simply astronomically high. And when looking at parks from other municipalities in Boulder County, in some cases, this is quintuple what they would charge for a deposit for an event of the same size. So I think that that's just kind of too much over the top of what other municipalities and parks departments are charging. But what I have noted is that in the lease agreements for those other cities' parks, they often have a provision that allows their parks department to bill for damages within 30 days of the event ending. And I think that we should adopt maybe something similar to that, rather than requiring such a massive upfront deposit, especially for festivals and organizations who might be trying to run events where the money is quite tight. If they do mess up and they do cause a lot of damage to our parks, I think we can bill them later. But asking for that much upfront could be prohibitive to the point where we might not even get the events that we might want to have. So my suggestion for that would be to do something along the following lines, which is to make the deposits in the range of $50 to $2,500 across those various tiers of the number of people, and to change the lease agreement to allow billing for damages, and make that very explicit and very clear with event organizers that they will be billed for damages if damages do occur. And we will withhold the deposit, but obviously if the damages are more than that, we'll take them. And to think of the deposit more as a security deposit rather than a damage deposit. And then I've also noted that our rates, the daily rates, are very, very low compared to other parks departments. And so I do think we would have a little bit of scope to increase those while keeping those deposits depressed. So I would say, it would be reasonable to me for it to be any, obviously I don't know the inner workings and exactly what kind of costs are incurred by Public Works when things do happen, but it would look reasonable to me if these rates were from the range of 50, well, no fee, obviously, from no fee to $750 per day for the 10,000 plus people. So that I'm just looking and kind of averaging and looking at other parks in Boulder and in other municipalities around us, and trying to make it look reasonable compared to what other folks typically charge, because I think people are going to have expectations that things are fairly similar. And then just a small note that I think that it needs to say 1 to 19 people, not 1 to 20, and then 20 to 99, because you're double charging the 20-person event there. And yes, that would be my suggestion for how to deal with the parks rental fees. I do think that these deposits are simply too high to work in the long term.
Coons-Isma, can I ask a clarifying question? So we typically only do lease agreements for events that are 10,000 plus. So are you recommending we enter into lease agreements? I mean, like, what's the threshold in which we would enter?
Yeah. So I think it would make sense for, 10,000 plus for sure. I mean, if you guys thought it would be valuable for 5,000 plus, but I probably wouldn't go below that. And I'm specifically thinking, obviously, of Frozen Dead Guy days and what we just had to go through with the Parks Board in that conversation. And it did feel like we were asking too much, mostly because we didn't have the provisions in place and we're kind of mid-project for the ball field and for the Barker Meadows project, the GOCO grant. And because we were in mid-project, there's a lot at stake. And so if there were damages this year in 2022 of Frozen Dead Guy days, there were significant damage, that would set our project back pretty far. And so I think that as a one-time solution to that problem, the large deposit made sense, but I don't think it makes sense moving forward, 2023 and beyond. I also do think that there should probably be, I don't know if there already is, but a very clear amount of time that you have to cancel your event before you lose that deposit. And that should be clearly stated as well. Because I do think we should look at it as a security deposit, especially if, we're doing what we did this past year, where not only is it staff time was being used by trying to figure out how to get Frozen Dead Guy days into a park that was under construction, but we also used appointed official time to do that as well. And so, if these are these huge events that require input from multiple boards and staff need to do kind of work and research on it, I don't think you can just say you're going to do that event and then cancel it the week before and get your security deposit back. I think that's going to have to be locked in.
I have a question for Eric. So you're saying, Eric, that there is no danger of significant damage occurring at Dead Guy Days this spring that would set us back in terms of the park plans.
I'm saying that there was concern that there might be, and we would need funds to mitigate that if that happened. And we had no mechanism to get those funds other than to charge a massive damage deposit, which is what we did.
So you're feeling that we have charges that we're going to charge Dead Guy Days to prevent.
Right. So they've already agreed to pay a large deposit for the festival coming up this year. But I think that's kind of a one-time solution for a park that's under construction. I don't think that is what we should do moving forward for festivals of that size. I don't think we should be charging $12,000, $13,000, $10,000 deposits.
So
if we change this and if we change it here, reduce it here to your proposal, Eric, and adopt that at our meeting in December, wouldn't that then be what Frozen Dead Guy Days would be operating under?
So Frozen Dead Guy Days signed a separate permitting agreement letter, and they were charged a deposit of $13,250, which they have paid. And that there's a breakdown in the letter that shows how much would be for receiving town staff time, and then your typical deposit.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just don't want to seem like, I mean, if somebody's trying to rent, a small park to have an event with over 10,000 people in Boulder, they're going to pay a $2,000 deposit. And they come up to Ned, they're going to pay a $10,000 deposit. That just seems too different to me.
All right. Is that it? With that all your comments on the fee schedule, Eric? Or you said you have a lot of notes?
I had a couple of other things. One thing was the reoccurring events. I think it needs to specify that it's less than 20 people, right? Because that was in the aim. That it was, I think you mentioned that it was usually under 20 people, so it should probably specify the number of people there. And then there was a question, there was a discrepancy in the aim versus the fee schedule about the stop payment cost. It said in the aim $25 and $35, and I'm just wondering which one of those is true, and just making sure that it's correct on the fee schedule.
Okay. Trustee Corvallin, any questions or comments about the fee schedule?
Yes, I do. I agree with Eric completely about the festivals. That's too much. If we shouldn't be more than Boulder, that's for sure. I'm wondering, what was the motivation behind that? Was the last Frozen Dead Guys just cost us $10,000 worth of damage and they only gave us $3,500? I mean, like, why such a huge increase all of a sudden? So I'll stop there.
Yeah, so the thought process was kind of in relation to not even just this park being in mid-construction, but the events that are of that size have a huge impact on town. And so a $10,000, similar to the discussion we had with Frozen Dead Days, would cover not only town staff's time, but any sort of reseeding that would need to be done, which is very costly. So that was the kind of the thought process behind increasing that in such a way that it's covering that type of damage.
Well, then it almost sounds like it's already a foregone conclusion that they're going to be paying this deposit, quote unquote. And that disturbs me. I don't think it should be 10,000. I think you should keep it at 3,500 and charge them for damage that's beyond what you would expect for the event. Or raise the fee to 4,000. But I don't think we want to discourage events from coming into our community because they are what Nederland used to have quite a few of, and people are missing it. And this would definitely discourage any more investment as far as for festival organizers. And it just seems really unfriendly. So I agree with Eric 100% on that. And like you said, just if they mess it up really badly, like there was that one Frozen Dead Guy Days where they did the coffin races in Chipeta Park and it was really muddy and it just really screwed it up and it required some major like re-landscaping and whatnot. Well, then you can charge them accordingly. But that's my thought. I also don't think it's necessary, in my opinion, to charge someone to change a sign or the liquor change. Yeah, I mean, how long does it really take you to do that? It seems like it's just part of the job of being an administrator, like not you, but like Peter or whoever else does that sort of stuff. It seems like we shouldn't be hindering our businesses anymore. They already pay so much in property tax and this and that and fees, and it's like they want to change their sign and it's going to look better, and you've got to just look at the parameters for a short while and double check the code, which should be pretty much memorized anyway. I'm against that. I would vote no on that if it were. I don't think we're voting today, but and then the other stuff seemed all right, I think. Let me look at the, sorry, because yeah, what was else? Was it I think for the variances, that does take a lot of time with the lawyers and our time and the planning commission time and everybody's time. So that makes sense for sure. I mean, that could even be $300 for all I care, because it is a lot of time and they're coming to us asking for a variance, but the other stuff, I don't know. I would not. I think that's getting a little greedy. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Tanya. Trustee Taylor.
Yeah, as a general rule, my gut tells me that Trustee Coombs Ismail's proposal about, I think, turning the contracts for 5,000 people or above in Chipeta Park into a kind of what was the term you used, Miranda, like a lease agreement?
Yes, a lease agreement.
Yeah. And so, but before I come in wholeheartedly on that, you know, I could, the numbers you provide, the numbers the town staff has provided, $5,000 and $10,000 as deposits. What are those numbers based upon, Miranda? What kinds of average costs have we had in the past, and how do those average costs indicate that these are proper fees to charge? I mean, you didn't just pull this off the top of your head. I know that. So the question is, what calculations led to these numbers? Because if the calculations really do point to these numbers, then I would wonder if we shouldn't be looking at perhaps robustifying that venue so that it can stand up to these kinds of large groups. Anyway, just what were some of the thoughts that led to those two numbers, 5,000 and 10,000?
So I'll just pick the 10,000. And so the feeling there, and I can bring up the Frozen Egg Day lease agreement that, well, yes, Chipeta Gershio is going through a redevelopment. The restating is still the cost regardless. And so $10,000 would be the cost of needing to reseed, whether it's Gershio or it's Chipeta, needing to reseed in either town staff's time or contracting that out. And so that really just covers purely physical damage of the facility. We did, in working on Frozen Decades permitting agreement letter, determined that $10,000 was the approximate cost of that damage. And then the 5,000 is truly just a duplication of what is there. Of course, we didn't feel like it was appropriate to jump from 1,000 or 2,500, that we would have that halfway mark at 5,000 to 9,999.
Do we generally have to reseed after Frozen Dead Guy Days? Is that?
So I'd like to turn that over to Chris, because of course Gershio is a dirt bound, but it soon will not be. And so I think, yes, if and we don't typically allow events this large at Chipeta, and I believe we've never passed on the fees for reseeding. But Chris, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, sure. No, we haven't reseeded. In the past, we've actually, it's been a parking lot for several years now, and wood chips and such have been used to help mitigate mud, and we've brought machines on the field to scoop those up and remove them. And so I think that the deposit is really an incentive for events to return the facility the way that they received it. And previous interactions with event organizers have suggested that they just only keep the deposit and deal with the mess they leave behind.
In a sense, does the deposit does the deposit serve as an incentive to just leave it a mess so that we clean it up? In
I
other
think that
words,
that's
Yes, if it's not very
yeah,
much, then they just leave behind the deposit, and that's just
right.
town
So,
staff time is pretty valuable. I mean,
yeah,
monetary value, but
right.
really time is worth more than money.
So I think I agree with Trustee Coombs Esmail, at least for events of 5,000 and above. And so I mean we're talking about if they're good citizens and they've paid. I would almost suggest not charging a deposit and saying leave this the way you got it, or you'll get a bill from us, which leads to the next question. If we did that, is collecting that bill something that costs us a lot of money?
no, I mean, I think so that's actually how we typically handle police services is we bill after the event. That has not been typical for facility rentals, but typically we provide the invoice and, assuming we've got great event organizers, they would turn around and pay that invoice within 30 days.
So then I think I'm in full agreement with Trustee Coombs Esmail. I would say that for 5,000 and above, I would almost suggest returning to the original fees or close to that, and then make sure that in the contract, if we burn through those fees cleaning up, we bill the event organizer. But what we should also emphasize to the event organizer is if you leave this the way you found it, you'll get all that money back. If it's a deposit, then we would do that. So it strikes me that a contract worded in that way may actually lead to lower costs for us. And I am not an expert in this, so I'm still leaving that, Miranda, to you and staff. But I think that Trustee Coombs Esmail and Trustee Corvallin have made a good point, and I think I agree with them on these fees. For all the other fees, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with them, except for the typo 35 versus 25 that Trustee Coombs Esmail found.
Yeah, thanks. And that was supposed to say 35. So 35 is
Okay.
the correct amount.
So those are my only comments.
Thank you, Julian. Trustee Apt?
I think since we're covered on potential damages from dead guy days of spring, I'm okay with reducing the fees and being more on par with Boulder. I guess I was comfortable with the rest of the fees as proposed, and I would agree with Tanya that, the variances probably certainly require more time, and $300 is probably a more appropriate fee level. But what was proposed is reasonable. And I think modifying the park fees accordingly makes sense.
Thank you, Alan. Trustee Danforth?
Yeah, thanks. It doesn't sound like that $10,000 is necessarily, going to scare away anybody, considering Frozen Dead Guy Days just put up, what was it, 13,000? So I'm not sure if we're sitting here arguing something that's not actually going to be a problem for festivals of these sizes that are going to be paying these fees. But if we are the highest in the area, then that seems a little unreasonable, I think, that we would be suddenly charging more than what's normal. So Miranda, you said that these fees were in alignment with what's seen in the area, or are they higher?
No, these are just specifically on Nederland experiences. So they're not
Okay.
in comparison to City of Boulder. And that's where, again, that $10,000 came solely from cost of reseeding, including town and or contractor.
Got it. Okay.
And Trustee Danforth, just so you know, it was not a smooth process with Frozen Dead Guy days at all. And I don't think that a fee like that would be smooth in the future.
Okay.
And I also would like to reiterate that such a high fee may lead a festival organizer to require us to clean everything up because that looks like you've paid for primo service. So
Precisely. I think
think
it's a bit dangerous.
absolutely. I like the fees being reasonable with a solid reminder that we are happy to return all of this money if you hand it back the way you got it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to clarify, these aren't the fees we're talking about. We're talking about the deposits, right? The fees are staying the same. It's just, oh, no. Right?
Yes, that's correct.
Right?
Yeah, fees stay
Okay.
the same. The recommendation is the fees stay the same, and it's just the deposit being increased.
So I have recommended that the fees be bumped up slightly. Just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. So the recommendation on the table so far that, other trustees have brought up is raise the fees but lower the deposits.
And
Right.
write contracts with the large events such that if the damage is done over the deposit amount, then there's a mechanism for the town to retrieve that or to recompense.
Yeah, I think having a reasonable deposit makes sense in case they do damage and then just bail. And if we try to bill them, then they go, oops, we're bankrupt, and disappear or come back with a different name. I'm not sure if that is going to happen, but that's a possibility that they could just flake on it. So having a slight increase, I think maybe 5,000, so being half of what we think our cost would be as a deposit, and then with the potential to bill, over and above that for significant damages if it's not cleaned up. And I think having that in the contract for events over 5,000 people, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And then the only other thing I wanted to make sure we got on the record and talked about were the water usage fees. Those blocks. If Miranda or Chris, just clarify that what these blocks mean and how the payments work moving from block to block.
Yeah, so it's for the first 3,000 gallons that any household uses, they are charged at the rate of, I think it's $9.71 per 1,000. Looking at Miranda here, but the $9.71 or sorry $8.59, the new rate will be $8.59 for those first block, and then if you go over into the second block, then the 4,000th kilogallon or 4,000th gallon is at that higher rate. So you're only it's stepwise, so that at each block you move into, you're paying the higher rate for the usage within that block only. And so that everyone paying, the 0 to 3,000 is the same for everyone. And then the heavy users are then charged extra for just their heavy usage.
Perfect. I think that was all I wanted to talk about.
All right. Thank you. Alan? Oh, wait, did I? No, I already got Alan, sorry. Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover. Looking at my cheat sheet here. Jonathan, you're still on mute. Come back to Jonathan in a minute here to see if we've lost him or if he's just a computer crash. I guess, yeah, I'll give my comment is, I think the goal of going back to the park fees and deposit our goal here really is just to protect town assets. We're putting a lot of work into Gercio Field, and so I want to make sure that we do that in the right way. And I think the proposal from Eric is a good way of doing it. It limits the upfront expense or the amount of money that a festival of this size has to put forward in the planning phases, but allows the town the ability to recover any damages, so that if the field is destroyed and needs significant reworking, we have the tools to make sure we get that back again, and that then the damages don't fall on the residents' backs. So I think that's a good proposal from Eric, and I would propose that we look at reworking this fee schedule in the coming weeks to indicate that, and then also putting in, whatever we need to do within our town policies and procedures so that future large events have those clauses within their contracts. Jonathan, are you back with us? I'm guessing not. Okay. So I do know we have several members who would like the public would like to comment on this topic this evening, and I know I see some of them in the participants list. So I would like to throw the floor open to public comment. As a reminder, you'll get 3 minutes each. Identify yourself and whether you're a town resident or not, and then weigh in on what you've heard us discussing this evening, as well as what you see before you. So catch my attention in some way.
Amanda.
Hey, Amanda, welcome, please.
I'm gonna see our video even.
Ooh.
Yeah, just really quick, Amanda McDonald, 3875 Arbor Court, Boulder. I'm not a town resident, but a 40% business owner, and I am representing my personal view here. I'm not as a Frozen Dega Neighbors representative at this moment, but I just want to add, let's see, that deposit increase is over a 300% increase. I do recognize that the process at the time was difficult. But anyhow, I also want to note that we have insurance that we pay almost $10,000 for. And when this came up the last time they went to increase the fee schedule, my insurance company said, well, anything over like $2,000 is an insurance claim, So we are technically covered for any major damages. I say we, again, the festival is. And again, the industry standards, Telluride charges $1,000 deposit. I'm sure they have a lot more heavy fees, and I do agree on that the fees are low for town. But to ask it, there would never be any Frozen Dega days if there had been a $10,000 deposit. It was all I could do to make it happen. So I just feel, and that there was a bad year. Outside of that, though, that was the only time, and it was when there was a lake at the reservoir when we went to go down there. So we had to mitigate. And I did not handle that well, and money was tight. And I understand Chris's concerns, but it's a very different situation. And I just personally feel that 10,000, I worry about the future. If you put out a large number like that, that you won't have other events or, and I did want to note the fee schedule that was presented in the agreement we did sign, and was $3,500 plus $1,500 for receipting plus $8,250 for labor by Public Works. For what exactly, I'm not quite sure, but I know that things can happen, but I'd like to know what facilities exactly there are. I know there's a field, there's a power box, there's no water. I believe they lock the toilets and the trash during the festival. So I'm just wondering what the $8,250 in labor to cover facilities is for. Again, I am speaking personally. But yeah, and then I just think that insurance component could be really considered. I know you said we'll just bill you, but then there would be a lot of oversight. If an insurance claim happens, then, you know, we're both covered that way by they can, you know, that there's a proper oversight process to what is damaged and what is covered. You know, just for instance, I know there's big rocks down there now and may not be able to move in there as easily, or those rocks might need to be moved for the festival. Is that considered damage to the field if we moved a rock? You know, is the you know,
Your 3 minutes is up. If you can
I'm
tie it up
sorry.
real quick.
Okay, like I just said, Estes Park said, oh, we'd waive the deposit, and of course that would be covered by your insurance if there was a problem. And that was for a facility with toilets and a full-on facility, you know, I mean, and the fees weren't even close to the $10,000 deposit.
Thank you, Amanda.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, this is Deb DeAndrea. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if you
Deb,
guys can
please.
hear.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I had to like bounce because I don't have my computer set up for whatever. Anyhow, am I okay to speak?
Yep, the floor is yours.
Okay, cool. So I just like to share that I think the delta, I looked at the fee schedule, and for myself as someone who does the High Peaks Art Festival, which falls between the $200 and the $5,000 range, I was just like, what? So what are you going to do with me? And, you know, I look at Frozen Dead Guy Days, and I look at what other cities do, and I'm sort of questioning what the foundation is upon which the fee schedules that you're coming up with, that you're proposing, come from and are based in. Because I know as MedFest, we always came in honoring our recycling and having people in town and supporting town. But when I look at the High Peaks Art Festival, which I own, and MedFest, which I'm on the board for, and for the Dead Guy Days, which I'm wickedly involved in, it makes me question what town's vision is for bringing revenue in from a festival standpoint. The farmers market brings in well over 200 people. And given that, what is it, the boundaries that are placed there? You know, Ned, back in the day, was known for music. And I think that's a lost aspect of where we're going. And having music festivals like MedFest and Frozen Dead Guy Days, looking at the fee schedule, honestly, me, as a board of directors on MedFest, I can't afford $10,000. Granted, I don't bring in 5,000 people, but still, we do bring in a lot of people to town. So depending on how you count heads, we bring in a lot of people that bring cash to the businesses. Just like Frozen Dead Guy Days does in the middle of March when people need this cash infusion. So
Thank you, Deb. You want your 3 minutes is up. You want to tie it up real quick?
Yeah, so really quick, it's almost like you're cutting the head off of something that brings a cash infusion to a lot of businesses. And thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Can I have the floor?
I hear a very faint voice. Hello?
Can you hear me better?
We can just barely, maybe try turning off your video.
Hello?
Okay. Try it out.
Can you hear me? Hello?
We hear two different
I
voices
can
here.
hear you.
Yes, who's speaking? I'm hearing two voices. And now I'm not hearing any.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can
Yes.
hear you. Who are you?
Kathleen Shipeye.
Okay, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Okay, great. First, I want to start with the park bench, adopt a bench. How we go from charging $50 to $1,000 to get a bench put in is shocking to me, and I want to know, is this money going to Public Works? Is it normal and appropriate for Public Works to be making profits? And we've learned that what works for other municipalities isn't always a good fit for Nederland in regard to the $1,000 to adopt a park bench. And I bet other municipalities actually stipulate where and what the money is going towards before they come out with outrageous fees for it. Now, when we get to the festival fees, I'm having a near-on heart attack hearing tonight that we again made it up as we go, and somehow Frozen Dead Guy Day already has been told they need to pay a $13,000 deposit and have paid it. I can't even believe it because the fee schedule hasn't even been changed for this increase. So once again, we didn't follow what the code says. Secondly, the only reason, and I know it and you all know it, that they had the $13,000 is because they were lucky enough to get a six-figure grant to cover their butts for all the losses they had to take. And no one is ever going to be able to come up with a fee like this again in advance. I'm astounded. And I can't believe that again we veered off of what the policies and the procedures and the fees are and made something up as we go. Okay, it's got to stop. It's just got to stop. I've also sent a full public comment in to go into the next minutes. I also don't understand why anyone needs to use the park for yoga, volleyball, normal park activities. That's what the land is meant for. And I don't think anybody should have to register. If 20 people want to go or 30 people want to go and play volleyball every Wednesday, that's a park activity. If no one's making money off of it, the public should be welcome to use the park. That's the point of the park. And I'm really concerned over the limitations that are being put on festivals and people using public park space. It's just shocking to me. In general, I don't think any daily, weekly, monthly activities like yoga, volleyball, dance, baseball, etc. should require any fees for the use of the public land unless there is an actual private event that is paying to put on some type of event. But volleyball, my God, I can't even believe it. And the sign permits. We need to, approving a sign permit means we need to address the safety and physicality of a sign and include things like dimensions, location, materials. Approval of a sign permit does not include what the sign says, yet Nederland has a history of making some people obtain a new sign permit if they change what the sign says. My example is when Ron Mitchell changed his hostel sign.
Your time is up,
to
Kathleen.
hop in, and he's required to apply.
Please tie up. Your 3 minutes is up. If you can tie it up real quick. Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Who is this?
This is Stephanie Andelman. I live off of Caribou in Nederland.
Floor is yours.
What did you say?
The floor is yours. Go right ahead, please. Sorry.
Okay, terrific. Here we go. So I am coming from the perspective of an event attendee, an event organizer. I appreciate that town understands when nonprofits put on events, that it's at a different level and ability than a for-profit event. So I'd like to notate that and recognize that. To Lindsay's comment that perhaps a $5,000 to $10,000 prepayment as a deposit would not scare away event organizers is false from my perspective, as I would not be able to consider many events I'm thinking about for town to help the businesses if I had to come up with that money up front. One, I'm going to talk about Telluride because I have a very long conversation with their event person today, the person who permits all of the events. And one very valuable aspect to think about is when the money comes in that the event organizers have to pay. What has happened, as an example from Frozen Dead Guy days, is they paid in September for an event in March. Telluride and many other towns that I've researched ask for the money 2 months before the event, where they have already collected ticket fees and thereby have the amount to pay for a deposit and an event rental at that time, because they have already collected it from the attendees. I don't see any mention of that with event planners and these ordinances that you would like to pass. But Julian's point about a walkthrough to, well, his point to leave it as it was, what is that based on? There can't be any subjective analysis. There needs to be a walkthrough documentation. And to Amanda's point, is insurance part of it, plus that event rental, plus the deposit. It's a marriage of many aspects of that whole circle, and there has to be documentation of the before and after, and not up to somebody's opinion, which has been in the past. To the point of this increase, it is officially a 186% increase. And I hear all of you loud and clear that that is too much, and I appreciate hearing that. I just want to tell you my conversations with Telluride, that they consider any event over 3,000 people a large event with their special event permits. They consider events that are over 20 years old legacy events, and they charge those events $500 to $1,000. And then they sometimes have a bond that's required based on history. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Anyone else from the public like to weigh in?
Billy Giblin, can you hear me?
Yeah, Billy, welcome.
How are you? All in all, yeah, good conversation, a lot of good comments. It caught my ear when Amanda said, you know, if I heard this right, that she had been talking to the town of Estes Park. It would seem tragic in many ways to see the Frozen Dead Guy festival go anywhere else. But all in all, yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of good comments and discussion, so I'll let you guys continue with that. I just wanted to say I agree with the tiered structure for water and sewer fees. I think it's important that we do, you know, charge people dearly for water if they're abusing that resource. And yeah, it's similar to how electric companies set up peak tiers and you know, in peak seasons like summer cooling months for electric companies. So I do applaud that tiered structure so that people consider water use and water conservation. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Billy. Any other members of the public?
Chris?
Yes.
Chris, this is Deb DeAndrea again. I had a question. Is there a way before you guys make a vote on this that we can actually share with you, the Board of Trustees?
We're not actually going to be we're not voting on this tonight. This was introduced. This was introduced tonight, so I would encourage anyone who has further thoughts or, like yourself, you know, some input from a festival organizer to email the board. We've had a long discussion here about the changes we would like to see, and I'm not sure if you are on for those. So listen to the recording tomorrow, because I think a lot of the changes we're talking about might be more along ways will mitigate a lot of the concerns people have had. But there will be a chance to weigh in further, both in public meetings and also via email and comments to the board in the coming weeks.
So, Chris, may I share something? When I first moved here, I was on the board on this task force, and we did economic task force on how to bring business, and this was 15 years ago, how to bring business into town from the ski area. So I'm not a proponent of creating another organization, but I would like to have another brainstorming group.
Okay.
To help.
So yeah, that would be great. And let's send a comment and email in so that that's something totally different than the fee structure. I want to make sure because we're still
it actually falls into that.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, let's talk about it. You and I touch base and let's talk about it.
Okay, fair enough.
Does any other members of the public that haven't spoken already like to weigh in on the fee structure conversation we're having?
You're not voting on that tonight, right?
That's right. We're going to have we're going to bring this back to the board for a discussion and then direct staff to probably take another crack at this.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
I just want to say one more thing, and that is that I just think there's a really great potential for more income from events. And, you have a sustainability task force position that you were talking about tonight. And I think that's great. And I just think that sometimes instead of, if we looked at it more of like, how can this really, really help your budget, festivals and such.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. All right, we're going to bring this back to the board for discussion. I think we've heard some proposals, from Eric regarding the fee structure. And I think what we'd like to do is, and I'm looking for Miranda, if this is going to work with the schedule, because I know the next thing we're going to talk about was the calendar on the budget, was maybe take another crack at this and bring it back. Maybe at the next meeting, or if we can how does that work with the schedule if we want to take another look at the fee structure?
So we can, the original schedule had the 2022 budget coming back to the Board of Trustees next week. And so we thought maybe we would need to stick with that. So as you'll see here, November 16th. And so while I don't necessarily, maybe the board can provide guidance, I don't think we need to bring the budget. We could bring the amended fee schedule based on the comments we've received so far. Although it would be helpful, Mayor Larson, I know Trustee Corvallin had talked about the business and liquor fees. I didn't hear if there was support, and so it would be good to know where the board stands on some of these other items. I do feel I understand the directive park facility rentals, but I guess it's really that liquor and sign modification and a $300 permit fee for variances that I'm looking to see if there's at least 4 trustees who approve of that.
Okay, so first, in terms of the large event stuff and the event fees, I think, is everyone from the Board of Trustees, do we have a nod of 4 to have staff go forward with that proposal? I can't now see the.
Yes. Would it be helpful if I recapped what I believe I understand?
Yeah, that might be good, and then we'll just actually time to a straw poll.
Yeah, that we will keep all deposits as is, so no changes there, but we will indicate that lease agreements will be drafted for any event that is 5,000 or larger. I will make a correction. Trustee Coombs-Ismail, I'd like to do 1 to 20 people and then 21 to 99 to make that correction. And then, let's see, we would specify in the reoccurring events that those are for events that are less than 20. And I believe that's captured everything.
That would be less than or equal to 20.
I wanted to bring something back up. I forgot to mention at the time, see if anyone else agrees, about the $50 monthly fee for people who use the park recreationally just to have fun, like playing volleyball, or not a business, not somebody who's running a class, but just leisure activities. of just
No, I
friends.
understood that this was
Do
for
we think that's
reserving.
fair?
the park.
I don't think that's fair to charge people.
I don't think it's just for leisure activities. This is for
No.
people who are reserving the park for a private use.
They're reserving it.
Right.
Right.
They come in and they're having.
It's not just that they're showing up with a volleyball.
Okay, but I mean, okay, so because you are allowed to show up with your group of 20 friends and play volleyball as many times as you want, as long as.
Without having it reserved. So they did file for it to be reserved, and so then they could take over the entire grassy
Nobody
area.
else can play it. Nobody else can hang out. You can't walk the dog. Okay,
exactly.
well, I guess
yeah,
that makes sense.
And we charged them a deposit, and we did actually end up taking that deposit due to the reoccurring damage that occurred on the field. The deposit was $50, and that doesn't even cover the time it took for town staff to work on reseeding. So that's why we felt like a reoccurring fee, if they were going to use it and use it solely for their purposes because they rented it, that they should be charged, say it's 3 months, $150 total for the 3 months. So I have a question. What happens if I just show up with 50 people? So Deb, we're not taking public comment. You and I are on the same phone right now, and so
I'll shut up.
I can't because if I mute, then I can't speak, and so otherwise I'd have to end the phone call.
Nope, I'm done. Sorry.
Yeah, but just to be clear, this doesn't stop anyone from ever just going down and using the park. This is, this is in terms of you're trying to, reserve the entire thing for the use of a group.
Party.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense to me.
I can clarify that it's for reservations and for events that are less than 20, where we would not typically charge a fee. This would be if they were to establish that reoccurring reservation.
Right.
Gotcha. So
Because
one
what
time.
happens is for 4 hours, we can't then book it for someone else because they've reserved it for 4 hours.
And I just wanted to clarify, Miranda, I mean, I don't know if this is the way everyone else feels, but what I was proposing was that the deposits be maxed out at 2,500 rather than 3,500, and that the fee.
Taylor had mentioned keeping them as is.
Right.
I think that's where
I think there were some different ideas there.
And that was my suggestion, and yet Trustee Coombs-Ismail's proposal is fine with me, especially because, as has already been discussed, for a large festival of the type we've been discussing, we should be assuring that they have insurance, and we should be able to file a claim if they do serious damage. I hadn't been thinking about insurance, but that's absolutely correct. As long as we're connected in with the festival organizers so as to know we have a way of receiving recompense if there is excessive damage, I think we're just fine, especially if there's an insurance company involved. So the idea of dropping to 2,500 as a deposit, I think we leave that to staff to come back with whatever they suggest, and then we'll look at it again. But that seems reasonable to me, as long as we know we have a way of getting compensation if there is excessive damage.
Okay, so I'll change that to 2,500 for both 5,000 to 9,999 and 10,000 plus. Assuming, I guess I have a nod of 4 on that.
Yeah, and I think you do have a nod of 4 on that one, and we can bring that back, and this will be the sort of the one thing we can really dig into at the next one. But with regards to the other items, I think specifically Tanya brought up with the sign and was it liquor? I think were the two. Does anyone else from the board want to readdress those? We added those in with regards to to offset the amount of time spent by town staff in the processing of those applications. But we're open to modifications if there are other members of the town board who are interested in reducing those or not changing those, I guess.
Well, so I agree with Tanya, and I would probably vote in favor of eliminating the sign change fee altogether. And I wonder if it would be reasonable to have the liquor license fee.
I would like to offer just a point of clarification on liquor. That liquor is not just the town clerk. Any sort of modification of premise requires all department heads to weigh in and to review applications. And so it is not just kind of that singular fee for one person. And then I guess another point of clarification is that coordination with Department of Revenue over a modification of premises, similar to a liquor, there's a lot of back and forth. So it is definitely not like a quick, we sign off and it's a done deal. There's a lot of collaboration that occurs with the Liquor Enforcement Division.
Got it. That's not a hill that I'm going to die on, but I do think that waiving the sign fee, I think, would be a good gesture here.
I guess I disagree. Excuse me. I disagree with waiving that fee.
Yeah, I guess I would have a question if we didn't have anything about sign modification, what's to stop a business from putting up a sign and then, modifying it to something that no longer fits within town code, et cetera, if there's no oversight?
Are you asking as town staff?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, with the sign modification that's in there now, this is they have to approve. So if we remove the fee, do they still have to come to town and say, hey, we're modifying our sign, and then town's going to look at it and say yes or no, it meets our criteria?
Yes, they would still need to do that.
Okay.
But we are talking about signs on the businesses themselves.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we're all talking about the same signs. Because if it were some like street sign or something like that, or, then I would totally understand. But I feel like a sign that is kind of their sign, I don't know, getting just the okay from us makes sense to me, but charging them for that just feels a little much to me.
Okay, so we have two that are we have two people who have spoken up in favor of removing that line. Do we have other trustees who are interested? I guess, yeah. Other trustees interested in doing so? I mean, we're not voting tonight, but. If not, then what we could do is we could leave it in for now and spend the next week, Eric, Tanya, you guys can try and convince the rest of us why it's right, or members of the business community can come to us and try and convince us why this $50 is a backbreaker. And we can then discuss this. We'll leave it in for now and then discuss it again during the actual vote or during the next meeting when we're discussing all the other items. And the other thing I just want to make sure we don't lose, Miranda, is the stop payment fee, the typo that Eric caught.
Yes, that's just a typo in the AIM. It is accurate in the fee schedule itself, but I will fix the AIM.
To make sure.
Now, I think the last one, though, Mayor Larson, is whether the variance application fee is $250 or $300. I believe I heard Trustee Apt and Trustee Corvallin say they were comfortable with $300. I don't know where everyone stands on that.
Yeah. Personally, I would just leave this one. This is, it's town staff knows how long these things take in terms of the attorneys within department heads, et cetera. So I would defer to town staff on what the appropriate amount is. But other trustees?
I think the 1,000 in escrow is probably enough there, and that 250 seems fine to me. I'd keep it as is.
Okay.
Any other comments from trustees regarding the fee schedule, or we'll be looking at it again in a week. And like I said, if you have thoughts on these that come up, talk to your fellow trustees, following sunshine laws, et cetera. And we can have this discussion again in 1 week. And I would encourage the members of the public who have been listening in, like I said, we didn't make any decision tonight. We've heard our discussion. Send us emails. Let us know, give us more details of what some of you were able to say in your 3 minutes, or examples. Help us make the right decision for the town. All right. We will move on to,
Sorry, are we bringing back the budget next week, or what's been decided on that?
I
That's the
think
thing.
the budget, I think it sounds like we're pretty well in agreement on, and it's the fee schedule we want to bring back. As
Right.
long as that works with you guys and our schedule to get this adopted in time.
Okay, so I'll just change that one item then, that one line item to include the 3750. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, is there any way we can have a very quick break right now?
I was actually going to propose that because I think the next one's going to be a long topic as well. So let's take a 5-10 minute break here. Well, let's make it a 5-minute break. We're all on our homes, and we'll come back here at 9:10 p.m. to talk about Wild Bear. All right, we'll give a little 30-second warning here to those who can hear my voice, and we'll be bringing this meeting back.
You should flash everybody's lights like in a theater.
I thought about I should download like the sound effect of that the little 3-tone that they do, but I keep thinking about that too late in the meeting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's 9:11 by my clock here, so I think we will bring this meeting back to order to tackle our next agenda item because we still have several to get through this evening. And this one is the variance request from Wild Bear Nature Center. And I believe, Miranda, you're going to introduce this to us?
Yes. Let me get my notes here. So before you tonight is a variance request that is to decrease permitting, plan review, and plan investment fees, which, as you know, we refer to as PIF, for the Wild Bear Nature Center, which currently is addressed as 0 Peak to Peak Highway. However, that will be readdressed during the permitting phase. Wild Bear Nature Center, this has come to you before when they came for an SRU agreement, but just as a reminder, they're developing their 4.95 acre parcel with a 8,500 square foot multi-use building to encompass a nature center. They estimate the project valuation to be 3.5 million. So what we do is we have a program where we can run an estimate of permitting fees. So assuming the project valuation does not change, we determine the permitting fees to be $492,707.13. Again, I do want to note that that is just an estimation. The true value gets assessed when the building permits are pulled. So to clarify building permits, when a building permit for a new commercial build is pulled, there are the following fees. We have a permit fee, which covers the permitting process in itself. That includes both town staff time and safe build. A plan review fee, which again covers both of those parties. A water tap, a sewer tap, our construction and demolition program fee, and then the water and sewer PIF. Of the permit and plan review fee, Safe Build collects 80% of that fee. So prior to even coming forward with this variance, we talked with the Wild Bear team and identified that there are a few fees that just kind of automatically need to be waived. The first is the water and sewer tap. Because they're 2-inch taps, Public Works can't accommodate that, which means they're going to need to secure an independent contractor to complete that, and therefore there would be no fee charged. We also feel very comfortable in waiving the construction and demolition fee, especially since 70% of that fee is returned back to the permit holder. We do feel confident that Wild Bear will divert their materials, especially since they're already committing to building a sustainable, environmentally conscientious manner, and that's just a part of their values and their vision and their plan for this building. So we do feel that we could waive that fee. So that leaves us with permit fee, plan review fee, and the 2 PIFs. Wild Bear is seeking a variance where the PIF would be waived in their entirety, and they would only be responsible for the 80% safe built charge, for a total of $217,468.98. Initially, as town staff, we recommended a 75% PIF reduction and then reducing the permitting fees by 20%, again, just covering that safe built amount. And that total would have been $272,686.71. Recently, myself and Chris Pelletier met with Jill Dreves, and we had talked about what a possible alternative could be. We had talked about a 90% PIF reduction with that 20% permit and plan review fee to, again, only cover safe build. And that changed the price to be $239,756.07. Tonight, Wild Bear will still be presenting that they like the PIFs waived in their entirety. We do, however, feel there's a strong interest in collecting those fees, even if it's a 90% reduction, because PIFs ensure that Nederland can expand facilities without placing that full burden on the ratepayer, which will ultimately contribute to keeping Nederland more affordable. So I would like to turn it over to Jill, who is here with members of her team and has a presentation I will share. But if that's okay, Mayor Larson, I'd like to go ahead and do that.
Hi. Speaking of fees,
Welcome, Jill.
anyway, I have a lot of respect for all of you. And I also just want to thank you all for visiting with me on this topic over the last couple of months. We've been extremely busy over at Wild Bear. I'm very excited about our progress. You know, not only did we serve over 2,000 children last year, 49% coming for free or nominal fee, but that was through 307 programs last year. We had 18,000 visitors and over 1,600 adults and families participating in programs. And so it's been a very busy year, but a really exciting part of our year has been creating and completing our development design for the Nature Center. And as you do that, when you're building a project, you realize there are expenses that you didn't know about. And so, and we knew about these, not to be confusing. It's an 8,500 square foot building, and you know, it's really going to provide an incredible resource to our community that Wild Bear itself is accomplishing. We have accomplished a tremendous amount over the last 26 years. And I'd like to think part of what we've accomplished is, you know, developing a very positive identity for the town of Nederland. Do you want to scroll there, Miranda? I have no control. Do you want to scroll? There we go. So basically, this facility will be serving our locals as well as the tourists that come through. We have more and more and more and more people coming from the Estes Park to the Idaho Springs, oldest scenic byway in the state of Colorado, where they don't have anywhere to stop, aside for when they stop in Nederland, which is great. But we look forward to having them stop at a facility that is net zero, that is giving energy back to the town of Nederland, that has low flow toilets and compost toilets and free spaces for people to play outside and free spaces for people to explore our exhibits and other things. And we'll have a pretty significant community gathering space inside and outside in the form of an amphitheater, which we look forward to sharing with the town. So I guess this presentation, and you can keep going, is really just, I mean, this is just our history, as you know. It's really just to talk about our marriage, our partnership, and all that we're contributing. This is not an easy task. We're in the middle of a capital campaign. We've raised millions towards this facility. We're hoping to see some groundbreaking possibly in the late spring. So it's real, it's happening, it's exciting. We were key partners in the preservation of Mud Lake. You know, as you know, I can't say it enough. And town of Nederland has been a partner, Boulder County is a partner with the 260 acres of Mud Lake, and then the subsequent 30 tons of trash that got removed by Wild Bear's volunteers. And so our free nature center downtown is our interim center. And you know, we just have actually very much appreciated our partnership thus far, has been nothing but positive. I feel very grateful for all the work that we have done together on this project so far. So let's keep moving. This is our site plan. It's an odd-shaped site because Boulder County allowed us to swap our sinkhole site for this incredible site that we tried to capture some beautiful natural features on, and you can see the driveway in, and the whole eastern boundary is a playscape for children. The building is there in the middle of the 5 acres that Wild Bear owns. In 1999, it was a ballot initiative through the annexation to the town that Wild Bear would build a nature center on our own 5 acres, which we purchased for $100,000 through our donors. So, you know, I don't think, I feel like all that we have done in this community has been a contribution to the common good, right? And so the work that we have done together thus far has made it possible. Without all of this flexibility and hard work on the town end, this would not be happening, and it is going to be an incredible asset for the town. So we can move there. So I just wanted to note how you guys support Nederland nonprofits, which I think is very impressive. You know, and it's just a list there of all the things that I probably missed something, but all the things that the town has done to make really good things happen in our community. We give 50% of our participants programs for free. It is a charitable organization that's doing big things for our town, and we need the support. So, waiving the fees, you know, what we're saying is it's less the expenses that would be direct expenses to the town. So an 80% towards, which is shocking, towards safe build makes sense. We don't need to be asking the town to cover our fees. And you can move to the next slide. So this is the actual chart of fees that we had, and I've had great conversations with everyone. I had a really awesome one with Chris and Miranda recently, and it's a very generous offer. But I still feel that the PIF fees itself, we know that these go to help the infrastructure of the town, but I actually feel like, being the fact that our town that our building is a sustainable, energy efficient, net zero, giving energy back to the town on a site that we created, I think it's only going to actually offset some of the use in town on a compost toilet and a low flow toilet. So there is a potential that we'll have a positive impact on the infrastructure in town. And, you know, just trying to make the point of, you know, partnering on this project and doing something that's landmark, which is what this is. It's a legacy, it's a landmark opportunity, and we need all the help that we can get from the town to raise the amount of money that we need to raise to make this be a legacy. So, and you know, I know that you have lots of questions. Let's keep moving. I think that's all I had on that topic. But this is a kind of just an overview of the building and the net zero. We've spent a lot of money actually already on consultants looking at our energy plan, because honestly, a net zero building at our elevation is expensive. That's what we've learned. And, you know, we want this to be for the Envision 2030 goals and all of that. It meets so many. For people to actually see this firsthand and understand what it takes, but also that it is doable. And taking lessons from this facility for our town. The open community space, we welcome the town to use as neutral space for, you know, your retreats or any kind of difficult problem solving, or, you know, we know that this facility will be used to a high level by the town. It will have an exhibits area. It'll have exhibits where visitors and community can come in and enjoy learning about maybe perhaps the CU Mountain Research Station Tundra Cam live climate change work that's happening just up the hill, or what's blooming and what's flying through and what to do about the moose. There's just a ton of education that we're looking forward to do in this facility. There's an observation deck where people can go up and see the divide and the hawks and enjoy that high altitude fresh air. There'll be classrooms downstairs. We're really looking forward to having our children's workshop separate from our visitors center. So children will have a space and teachers, and we'll be opening also a forest preschool. So forest preschool, expanded school age programming, childcare is a concern. We're looking forward to expanding ours and really serving the needs of the community. There'll also be a maker space. Our vision is to be arts integrated. It's a creative vision. And I know that the arts will really very much enjoy utilizing the space, whether it's for pop-up galleries or exhibiting an incredible interpretation of our planet. There's many opportunities there to be had. We're just launched our exhibits master planning process. So we have a professional team working the studio tectonics with our volunteer committee, planning out our exhibits plan. Okay, you can go next. So I think I described who it'll serve. I could see the local school really utilizing it. I could see the local preschools using it. I could see the community coming out and just hanging out and letting kids play in the outdoors while they socialize. It's another park that's available to the community. And the fact is our tourists need a little bit of training before they are entering into town, just in terms of how we are good stewards for this very, very special place that we live in. So our plan is to really help our tourists become stewards and understand where they are. So formal programs for children, adults, families, and yeah, you can go to the next slide. This is just, I just kind of did an overview of what Wild Bear is hitting on most of the Envision 2030 goals. And I'm sure you read through that, but having an actual model in our town for environmental and sustainability. The Parks and Rec, I'm excited about your park ranger and your grant writer. Congratulations. Community engagement is only going to go up through this nature center. And I know that community groups will be using the nature center. So basically, we're thrilled about that. We're thrilled about the progress we're making. This is a 26-year vision, and people are jumping on board to make it happen, and it is happening. And I just want to be formal partners with the town of Nederland. So I just asked some questions at the end of you guys. Keep going. How do you think the community will benefit from this resource? How will the town government benefit from the new facility? And how will families use this resource, and the schools and other groups? So I hope you can give careful thought to that. This is no easy task, raising the kind of money we're trying to raise for this great resource. And I guess that's all I have to say. Do you have questions?
Thank you, Jill. Yeah, let's start this out by if any of the Board of Trustees have questions for Jill about this. I know a lot of us were able to meet with her over the last month or so, but we'll begin with Tanya. Do you have any questions for Jill?
I have no questions for Jill. Is this the time to comment regarding if we are in support of this or not?
Sure, because I mean, it sounds like, I was just going to summarize real quickly. It sounds like everyone is in agreement, the 80% or the 20% reduction in the safe built fees, the plant permit review and plan review. I think everyone seems to be fairly well in agreement with that. So unless you are specifically against that, we can kind of, unless anyone specifically wants to charge the full price on that, then we can kind of move past that to what we think the reduction in the water and sewer PIF, whether it's 100%, 90%, or something else. So,
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Well, you're asking, do I want to charge more than what's proposed? And I would say no, I'm in favor of 100%. And I could tell you why, or we could do that later.
Well, let's maybe just we'll straw poll it here, because if everyone's already in agreement, then we don't have to have much discussion. So, but no questions for Jill. Okay. All right, Julian.
Jill, I'm wondering, I assume you're working with the Wayfarer project to make sure that this signage is clearly indicating to all people entering Netherlands where Wild Bear is. Is that true?
Oh, most definitely, Julian.
Okay, good.
Yep. All hands on deck.
Yep, we certainly want everybody to see that.
Appreciate
All right,
it. Thank you.
That's my only question.
Okay, Eric.
I only wish we could do more than 100%, Jill. I'm massively in favor of this project. I'm so excited to see it go up. I want the town to demonstrate the values that that I think we're all committed to by helping you make this happen. And yeah, hope to partner more in the future.
Thank you. I'm gonna cry. Just
Alan.
I don't have any questions, and I think it's going to be a major asset. So, looking forward to supporting it.
Lindsay?
No, I don't have any questions for Jill this time. I think that the options we have before us look pretty good, and I know which way I'm going to vote, but I'll hold off on that for further comments.
Okay, Jonathan. Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover? All right, come back to you. I do have actually I have a question, but it's a question I think probably for Chris Pelletier about this. I'm assuming there's no difficulties or anything with this facility and the town supporting it on our water and sewer. Is there?
No, as everyone knows, I'm an advocate for PIF fees, and I'm always reluctant to give anything away when it comes to Netherlands infrastructure. And of course, Jill arm wrestled me over it, and she won. So yeah, I'm always an advocate for PIFs. More people will reduce capacity and apply demand on facilities. That's just a fact. And so any little bit, I always try to push for. But again, I'm a big fan of Jill, and she's got strong arms. So
I guess one question, concern I've had, and I've been meaning to reach out to you about this, or question just to ask you is, this is kind of moving a facility outside our valley because it's over the ridge crest. Does that mean we're going to have to do anything special because it is kind of over the hill, or is there a pathway so it's not a problem?
it's an existing force main there, so the facility will have to take that into account when they're designing their sewer system, which they have, and they've been in communication with me. So there's already, I mean, to that point, yes, they're gonna have to pump it uphill for a little ways, as a lot of residents over there have to, but the infrastructure is already in place.
Okay. I just want to make sure there wasn't any extra town investment that was going to be needed because of the location of the facility. Okay. Thanks. One more time, Jonathan, are you off mute? Not, I think, my guess is there might be some public comment on this one. A few people who might want to weigh in and voice their probably their support for it. So I'd like to open this up to public comment and then bring it back to the board for discussion, more discussion. So again, if you're would like to speak on this, now would be your chance. Catch our attention, and you can have up to 3 minutes.
Hi, I'd like to speak up.
There we go. The floor is yours. Just identify yourself and go for it.
Hi, my name's Mike Reichert. I am the Director of Community Partnerships with Wild Bear. I've been with the organization for coming up on 4 years. Former resident of the town. And I'm very excited by this project. And I guess my request of the board is as one of the people trying to fundraise for this project, if you could do 100% reduction of fees, we would be forever grateful. This is a legacy that I think is really going to put a huge stamp on Nederland in terms of sustainability. And I look forward to partnering in the future on all kinds of projects. Just like Jill said, educating visitors, embracing local community groups, and if anybody is interested in getting involved even more now, we're growing and doing fun stuff at the shopping center currently. But yeah, this building is going to be incredible, and my request is that the town stamps this with 100% waiving of fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else?
I'd like to read a comment emailed by Kathleen Shapai.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Kathleen Shapai, 30-year East Magnolia resident, 18-year business owner. She says, I support it.
Okay. Short and to the point. I like it. All right. Thank you, Kathleen. Anyone else?
Yes, I would like to speak. I'm
Yes.
Dorothy Whalen. I'm board chair of Wild Bear. And coming from a little bit different angle, I think the town is well aware of the tremendous impact that Wild Bear has had on our children over the years. I've seen this with my own grandchildren. Their programs are excellent. And considering the number of children that we even bring up from Boulder, because they think the programs are so good. I've heard parents down there talk about how they really appreciate being able to have their children out in nature. It's very hard to find a camp where the children are outside in nature all day. And Wild Bear is unique in that way. So I would like to ask that the town do as much as it can to support Wild Bear. Ideally, that would be 100% support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Melody Baumhover,
Melody, take it away.
a Nederland resident. And I just think that most of you Board of Trustees members see that Wild Bear is really important to our town, and probably agree that these fees should be majorly waived. I would support the 100% waiver of the fees because, as Jill mentioned, this building is net zero. It's going to give back to the community in more ways than just the amazing programming that they've already been providing to the town. So I would just say I'm fully in support of waiving all the fees.
Thank you, Melody. Next.
Hey, this is Billy Giblin, 96 Tilden Street. Yeah, we support it. My wife and I support it. That this partnership between the town and Wild Bear, I do think, with the Envision work we all have been doing, and looking ahead with what we want the town to be along the line of sustainability, this program, and the development of this, and just anything the town can do to help with the financial side, I think is a good investment for the long term for just a unique business that brings people to the town and educates people about the ecosystem, as well as some good, some new sustainable and net zero construction and design that will be a good for other people in the community to learn from when they build or remodel. So, and our son goes there, and that's been great. So, but yeah, I think this is a good partnership for the long term.
Thank you, Billy. Anyone else? I am not hearing or seeing anyone else speaking up, so I will bring this back to the board for discussion. I know we've heard from a couple members of the Board of Trustees who have spoken in support of the 100% reduction. I don't, we didn't hear from everyone, so I don't know if that's unanimous or not. I know that, it's tough. I struggle a little bit with the 100% for two reasons. First, because I'm always nervous about setting precedents of 100% reductions. We've done that on other things this year, and I think it might be difficult. But also because our water and sewer infrastructure are two of our biggest needs. Improvements to them are two of the biggest capital improvements we see coming in the future. And it's a struggle to me to put this all on, all of it onto the individual ratepayers in town. But I also, 100% in support of Wild Bear. So I'm struggling a little bit in terms of that. I think, I'm appreciative of the fact that Wild Bear and the town staff have worked so well together to come to the idea of a 90% reduction compromise. And so would certainly be in favor of that first, but won't be voting against 100% either. So I will throw this out to the rest of the board just for comments on that, thoughts. And Alan, what's your thoughts?
I guess I have similar feelings. I can support either 90 or 100%. I think the plant investment fees are real investments in our infrastructure, and they're based on real cost. And I think a 90% reduction is substantial and significant and a major contribution. But I guess I'm open to hearing and see what the rest of the board says.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Eric, I know you weighed in earlier, but I'm going to give you another chance.
Yeah, I guess I'd just say that the difference in that 10% is about $22,000. And I think that it's not only the support to Wild Bear, but also the statement that we can make as a town in support of that project and what that project means and its long history with us. I don't think it sets precedent, because I don't think there's ever going to be another organization like this for the foreseeable future in the next 26 years, and probably much longer than that, that will have this track record with the town, and that will have this kind of level of alignment with Netherlands values. And so I see that 10% as sort of a kind of an unnecessary tarnishing of the statement that we could make here. And we did just, we are about to massively raise our rates and our PIF fees for those infrastructure projects over the next 10 years. I know that we're going to go for grants and things like that as well to try to offset some of those costs, but I don't think that by doing this, we're going to compromise our infrastructure in any meaningful way. And I totally understand Chris Pelletier's position, and I would be concerned if he were not advocating for PIF fees, and I think that is his job and his responsibility, and I think he's doing it well. But in this particular case, I think 100% waiver is the right way to go on pretty much all levels, community levels, financial levels, and the level of the values of Nederland as a community.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Lindsay?
I think, I'm in favor of the 90% option. I think collecting some fees, some PIP fees makes sense to me, because like what was said earlier, is that these are based on real costs, and it's our infrastructure that we need to make sure that we're keeping up to date, and these fees play a role in that. So I think, and the fact that Wild Bear has agreed to it, I think the 90% is the way to go.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Well, I think Wild Bear did ask for 100%.
Yeah. Jonathan, you with us? Okay. Tanya?
I mean, Eric said it best, so I'm just gonna what Eric said, but I do want to add that at this point in Nederland, we at the schools are losing families due to high costs and general Nederland atmosphere, not as conducive to families because we don't have the sports and the this and the that is down the hill. And I think having this Wild Bear Center could be something that could tip the scale to get families to come back to Ned. And that's just, you can't put a price on that. It's completely in our vision, and it's almost, like she said, going to be another park for the town that isn't maintained by the town. It's going to pay for us giving her the money. It'll pay for itself once it's completed. We're talking about money just from the tourist and the revenue that it's going to generate in sales tax and this and that and whatnot. And the price you can't put on families and children and learning and employment opportunities that are going to bring, a different type of person to this town. And I'm for 100%. So.
Thank you, Tanya. Julian?
I came into this meeting favoring option number 2, and I continue to favor option number 2. Reducing the PIF fee significantly, I think, is a good idea. To eliminate them, I am a little worried about precedent in the same way that the mayor is. Statements are very important, and I think this is a good statement. I think option number 2 is a good statement from Nederland, and that's what I'm prepared to hold to.
Thank you. Julian?
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
About precedent. I mean, the fact that we're given the food pantry free rent for all these years, doesn't that set precedent? So every nonprofit's going to expect free rent from the town of Ned. I don't think we need to be worried about precedent. As Eric said, there won't be another Wild Bear. We'll be lucky to have another great organization like this build something amazing. Did anyone ever say to you, why are we giving the food pantry and the clothing closet free rent ever? And I don't think it's ever come up. And I'm not saying to charge them rent, but I'm saying that adds up every year to at least this 10%, 22,000 we're talking about every year. So that's just something to think about. I wouldn't obsess over this precedent, really.
I would like to motion to approve Wild Bear's request for a 100% PIF reduction and 20% permanent and plan review fee.
Do you want to read the one that's on there? There's on the screen there that's got some stuff, town attorney stuff, just to make sure it's correct.
I'm sorry. I didn't get that far. Move to approve a variance reducing PIF fees by 100% and permitting and plan fees by, in this case, would it be 80%? What am I saying here? By 20%.
Reducing by 20%.
I direct the town attorney to draft a resolution for approval to memorialize the variance, which resolution will be placed on the consent agenda for the November 16th, 2021 Board of Trustees meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes, I second it. This is Tanya.
Motion and a second is on the table. Macy, you would please call the vote.
Trustee Taylor,
No.
Trustee Danforth,
Yes.
Trustee Danforth, Trustee Apt,
Yes.
Trustee Apt,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Corvallin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover. I'm not sure he's present anymore.
We'll make a note in the minutes that
Sure.
it was a no vote and didn't participate in the discussion.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Macy. I believe that was everyone, right?
Yes, that's everyone.
Okay. Yeah, so that passed. Jill and everyone at Wild Bear, congratulations.
Thank you.
I look forward
Thank you,
to the next step.
Let's go. Appreciate so much the support from the town of Nederland. Fantastic. Thank you.
All right, we are moving ahead. We have, just to give everyone an idea of what's ahead of us still this evening, because we're looking at 9:50. There are 2 grant applications or within the action items that need to be acted on this evening. And then one of our discussion items that we need to at least have a brief discussion, that we can pop the other one to a later time if we're running out. So I would like to begin by making a motion to extend the meeting to 10:30.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Macy?
Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Trustee Danforth,
Yes.
Trustee Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover, Trustee Corvallin,
Yes.
Trustee Apt.
Yes.
Okay, so we will dive into the next one, which is the Action Implementation and Mitigation Grant. Miranda.
Yes, all right. So before you tonight is the Action and Implementation and Mitigation Grant, which we call AIM. This was brought to us by Boulder Watershed Collective. And what it is seeking grant funding for mitigation project planning and an update to the Netherlands Colorado Wildfire Protection Plan, which is almost 10 years old. In the agenda, we did include the concept paper. Boulder County Watershed Collective is working on the actual grant application, which is due on the 11th, which is why this is before you today. Part of the application asked for a match. And so while the Colorado Water Conservation Board is providing match funding, the AIM had requested that there be a diversified funding portfolio and asked the town consider a match. So we called, there was a special PROSAB meeting on November 1st where this was discussed, and PROSAB felt that it was appropriate to do a $5,000 match from town. And those funds would either come from the funds Eldora paid to rent Gershio or the funds that Tungsten Village had paid to be that match. And I did email the Board of Trustees a letter of support from the Nederland Fire Protection District, who also are committing a $5,000 match for a total of $10,000 from the respective agencies if approved tonight. And we do have Maya here, who is working on the grant, and I believe she's still on, and I'd love to invite her to speak for a few minutes about this grant opportunity.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I'm just on my telephone. Thank you, Miranda. Yes, the Boulder Watershed Collective is working with communities on issues of wildfire and forest health, and I'd had previous conversations with Rick and with Miranda about the CPAW evaluation that the town had gone through, the community planning for wildfire. I can't remember all the acronyms, but one of the recommendations in that document was to update the CWCP. for multiple reasons. Because there had been Cold Springs, a lot has changed on the landscape since you guys did your plan. The Cold Springs fire happened. There's been a lot of forest work by the U.S. Forest Service, development. All of these are good reasons to update a plan. And so we had applied for some funding from the Colorado Water Conservation Board for planning and outreach related to wildfire, and that can be used as a match for this action and implementation grant. So we submitted a concept paper to see if it got any traction, and we thought we could use our full grant match that we had, but they sent comments back on the concept paper, and one of the things they said was that they would like to see financial contribution from the Nederland community in support of the plan update. So I appreciate that the town and the fire district have, discussed committing that, and I think that a CWPP update, because it comes with such a robust facilitated stakeholder process, will be really, really useful for the town of Nederland in figuring out how to move forward with, more robust wildfire planning, whether that's structure protection or forest work or whatever comes out of those stakeholder meetings. And we would just really like to be part of that stakeholder process. So I don't know, I guess the ask today is, I don't know if you have to vote on it or how it works, but yes, we would like to take the funds committed and apply for the grant. I haven't finished it yet, but it's almost done, and we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, so that's exactly the ask is, does the Board of Trustees approve the $5,000 match to be applied to this grant application?
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Maya, for bringing this to us. I'm going to go see if the board has any questions for town staff or for you, Maya, and we'll begin this time with Tanya.
I don't have too many questions. I'm just this is a forest mitigation project, and where exactly is the boundary for this?
It's not actually a forest mitigation project. The town already has a community wildfire protection plan that has recommendations in it for doing defensible space or home retrofits or egress work or forest restoration projects. And so the grant is actually to spend the time updating that plan with new risk modeling, with a stakeholder meeting to find out what the community is interested in, stuff like that. It's a plan.
Sorry, I was thinking it was the actual implementation of the plan. It's redoing the plan. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Thank you.
Okay. Julian, any questions?
Yeah, Maya, I was looking through the proposal and had a number of questions. So the proposal to update the town's CWPP, how do you see that process taking place? Is that going to be formed from a committee of members of various town committees and the Board of Trustees, or is this going to be handled through consultants? How do you see that process happening?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think in large part that's up to the town and the fire district, who I assume would be leading this process. So I think that many communities hire a consultant to, on the one hand, the consultant can do some of that wildfire risk modeling and the technical aspects of that, but also the consultant can facilitate those community conversations and discussions that need to happen about what the values and the priorities of the town are. And
Okay, but Maya, this is a project that you guys are doing. Where do you guys come in?
No, we are just wanting to.
You're just asking us to update our CWPP.
Yes, we are just wanting to help move the process forward.
Okay, so now I'm not sure what you guys are doing and what we're doing. How much of this is asking us to do stuff, and how much of this is stuff you're doing with a grant and our additional funds?
So I can see why you're confused, because the concept paper included other tasks that we will be doing as well. And so that we will
Which
be
tasks
doing,
will you do?
yes, is outreach, and we are doing larger scale planning in the broader Boulder Creek watershed.
Okay, so I'm looking at tasks with numbers on them. Which of the numbers are you doing? You're not doing task 1.
Yes.
So maybe, so task 4 looks like something you're doing. Community engagement.
Yes.
Okay. So you're going to produce 3 videos. You've produced videos before, I assume. What is your typical monthly viewership for these videos?
Okay, so this is where the Colorado Water Conservation Board match funding comes from. So this is a grant that we just received, but we haven't worked on yet. And this, the prescribed fire videos is something that was raised as within the MOU, the vision for forest health that was signed by 13 agencies and communities, including Nederland. There's a group of people of mitigation and suppression fire practitioners that meet regularly, and talking more about prescribed fire was one of the things that that group desired to work on more. So we've acquired funding to work on videos to help push those out into the communities, and there are 2 prescribed fires happening this winter and summer, one by Boulder County and one by the U.S. Forest Service, and so they're good opportunities to film those and get some footage locally of what prescribed fire looks like. And so the videos themselves have not been designed in more detail than that, but they'll be developed with partners.
So these are the first videos you've produced?
We've done a couple others that have not been released yet with foresters.
Okay, so we're not sure how effective the 3 videos are going to be, and we're not sure what the viewership is going to be.
We are not sure about that stuff, but it's not just that they would be developed by the Boulder Watershed Collective, but by a community of people locally, including Boulder County, multiple fire districts, and other people that are interested in discussing prescribed fire with communities.
So you're talking about pile building and burning workshops in Boulder County, and I assume you've done workshops in the past?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of attendance do you tend to get at these workshops? Are these workshops, for example, for the public, or are they workshops to be designated for firefighters and people involved in the art?
Normally, the workshops that we do are for the public. In the last 2 months, well, really since the beginning of October, we've engaged just over 200 people, just landowners, community members, in a variety of different projects, and, you know, including webinars and online stuff too. And the attendance, depending on the event, ranges from like 15 people to over 100 people.
Okay. So there's also an awful lot of training involved here. Is the training something you guys do, or is it something you're asking us to do?
No, we're not asking you to do anything.
And what staff is, what is the staff you're referring to when you talk about training? Is it our staff?
In the Boulder Watershed Collective organization, we have 4 staff members. So we have a forest program manager, and so part of the planning that we would be doing is to hire a consultant to help us do some more robust planning of forest restoration projects in communities that want that. So this is outside of Nederland. And as part of that process, we would be the consultant would be working with our staff member to better train them on some of the complexities of planning forest projects.
So how would all the stuff you're talking about here about burning slash, how does that augment our existing slash yard where most of us take our slash? Or is the slash yard something that you're saying is not the best approach, and there's a better approach, and you're going to help understand that?
No, I think the slash yards are an amazing asset to the community, and I hope that more and more people use them.
Okay.
Yeah, pile burning and building is just another option for slash management, and I think our goal is just to help people understand the multiple options that they might have for whatever works best for them on their land.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Eric?
Yeah, we discussed this a lot in ProSab and held a special meeting for it. And Maya and the Boulder Watershed Collective have been regular visitors to ProSab meetings, giving us updates on what they're doing and also offering opportunities for us to partner with their various activities, especially when we have to do explicitly with the town of Nederland, and they've been really great. And this seemed like a kind of cost-effective way and also a way to make it so that our staff didn't have to write the grant to update our community wildfire protection plan, which is something that we kind of all already know we need to do. And so this felt like a good opportunity to get that done in a bit of an easier way and in collaboration with other folks who are doing some of the work. So we felt it was a good way to move forward.
Okay. Alan?
I don't have any questions, and it sounds like ProSab's done a good job of vetting this, and I appreciated Julian's questions. Clarified a lot of issues for me. But I am supportive.
Lindsay?
Yeah, I think Julian did a really good job of asking some tough questions. So I don't have any at this time.
Okay. Jonathan? Okay. Yeah, no, I think, I really appreciate the questions Julian asked and the work ProSab had done, and Maya bringing this forward. I guess my only question really is, in terms of the $5,000 match, it was discussed we could use it from the various sort of restricted funds we have, either the Eldora Fund or the Tungsten Village Fund, because I know those are kind of both set aside for parks. So I'm just curious about whether those are actually applicable, or is this an applicable use of those funds?
Eldora would be the case. While it's stated that that's been a desire, it's not documented in the lease agreement, and that would be used solely for parks. So that Eldora funding source would be the most appropriate to pull the $5,000 from.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, because the tungsten I think is really specifically for open space, and while this is for protecting that, I don't really see it. It's a bit of a stretch, I guess. I thought for the Tungsten Village funding.
We listed both because, of course, mitigation has been a big piece. What this will do for us is help to prioritize what pocket parks or areas like the Wingate property that we need to mitigate in order to be able to move forward with parks. But I do agree, though, that Eldora funding is most appropriate.
Okay. Well, this is an action item, so we're going to be voting on it. So I want to throw this open to the public. If anyone would like to speak on this, what you've heard, the proposal, or the questions you've heard from the town board, now would be your chance.
I'd like to speak.
Yes, please. Floor is yours.
Mike Reichert, and I'm with Wild Bear. And I would fully support this as a partner with Boulder Watershed Collective. I recently participated in a field trip, pardon me, to Kelly Dahl, and amazing program co-hosted with the Forest Service and others. I'll let Boulder Watershed correct me of missing any partnerships. But I would say, if I had to guesstimate, 40 or so plus people attended. And if they're doing things like that and getting that kind of interest, I would fully support helping them in their efforts of educating our public and helping with fire mitigation, knowing what a problem it can become. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Rick Henriksen.
Yeah, Rick, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say from the fire department perspective, this is a big thing that we've been trying to do. The CWPP is actually almost almost 12 years old now from when it was first written. Things have changed a lot. That plan was big on big projects, which of course big projects also mean big money, but they also tend to do really good work. But we also know there's small projects that can work locally. And if this helps identify some of those that maybe we can do on a local scale, also by having that CWPP updated, that's going to help us with grants for those larger projects that maybe we can do is jointly between the fire district and the town, working, in some kind of coordination with the Forest Service. I know City of Boulder's working on a project, Boulder County is always working on, but this is going to, hopefully give us a little more, money if we get grants to work on some of those bigger projects that can really be a big help to town. So it's something we started talking about a year ago, updating it, and the price is certainly right for getting the CWPP updated, along with getting some planning done for specific projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else? Not seeing or hearing any, I'll bring this back to the board. And I guess I would be looking for, further discussion from the board, or if someone would like to make a motion with regards to the $5,000 match.
Well, this is Trustee Taylor, and if I'm going by the proposal, and it's a very well-meaning proposal, but let's keep in mind that task 1, updating the CWPP, is something BWC isn't doing. That's our task. And I'm guessing the task 2, hire a consultant, is also our task. Maya, is that correct?
No, I mean, we would love to help in any way. I guess I want to be respectful that it is a town process, and so we don't want to be, we want you to run your process how you want to run it, and we would like to help support that process.
How would you support it? I mean, what would keep us taking our $10,000, using it to hire a consultant, and then rewrite the CWPP, which is something we all agree we need to do? What do we get from BWC for that $10,000?
You get the other $10,000. I talked to the Ember Alliance, which does write CWPPs, and they estimated the cost at $40,000. Rick has also talked to other people, and he got less expensive bids. So, it's somewhere probably between 20 and 40, I would think. But with this grant, you would have the $40,000 to update your CWPP if you want to.
Okay, I'm not seeing where that money flows. That money is also going to other tasks, is it not? Or is that we put in 10,000, we get 40,000 to rewrite our CWPP, and the other tasks are other things that you're doing with other grants? Is that what this means? I'm just trying to understand the proposal. That's
No. So the request that we have from AIM is for $69,000, and we are bringing the other. It would be $59,000 that we're bringing to match, and the $10,000 that you're bringing to. And so, yes, we would use a portion of that money to do the other tasks in that, and then you could have the whatever the cost is to do the CWPP, in addition to the $10,000 that you're bringing.
If you scroll to section 6 on the proposal, there's a budget narrative section there that lays out task 1 is $40,000 for the town CWPP, 16 for task 2, blah, blah, blah.
So, Miranda, I'm guessing you understand how the money is distributed and how.
So, can I add a little bit, Julian?
Please.
So maybe just a little bit more background about how we've been working with other communities. And so the idea is that what we've noticed anyway in working with other communities, you guys have a lot more capacity than some of the other communities, but is that they either lack funding or capacity or administrative capacity to get whatever projects they want off the ground. And so we've been helping in different roles you know, in different places. In Gold Hill, we are managing a forest restoration project adjacent to town. In Sugarloaf, we're doing the same, and we have partnered with the fire district where they have contributed some funding, and then we have written the grants, and so we've been able to build this larger bunch of money that we can put towards projects. In Coal Creek Canyon, we're just facilitating community meetings because that's where they're at and that's what they need right now. And so, you know, this conversation came up with the fire district, the Nederland Fire District, that you're wanting to update your CWPP. And so that's where maybe we thought we could add some capacity with the grant writing.
Okay.
So,
So
yes, I think
I'm just being dense here. Yeah. So Miranda and Rick, I'm guessing that you have a full understanding of how the $40,000 will be used, how the project will be organized, how the consultants will be used, and how we will participate. I'm guessing you understand that.
Yeah, and so we would take the lead, and I think in just speaking in the 2+ years I've been around, I've already done that with Rick here, and so we'll just continue on the work that we've already started. And so we would work collaboratively to secure that consultant, to draft the CWPP, and work on that project development plan. But we would like to include the Watershed Collective, just because they're also applying for this grant, but understand that it would be town-oriented how we approached the process of updating the CWPP.
And I think that relationship is yet to be completely nailed down because, you know, we don't have the grant yet. But when we had the grant, I think BWC would be a really great resource in terms of public engagement and education for the community and sort of kind of understanding what the implications and ramifications of the CWPP update would be and getting a lot of public feedback on that. I mean, they've done amazing work developing like mobile apps to do walks through forested areas. That kind of geotag specific locations that explain things about it. I mean, they're very kind of educationally oriented in that sense. So I think we could benefit from that partnership, you know, beyond the monetary value we get out of this grant.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, this is Rick. If I can add one more thing.
Go ahead, Rick.
Wait. Just for a bit of clarification, the initial or our current CWPP that was done by the fire district back in 2009 does include our entire district, not just the town. And we would want to see that continue. And I think that really does affect the town positively as well, because obviously fire doesn't start and end at any political line. So it would be, we would see that as being our whole district. And not exclusively to the town.
Okay. Other comments from the board? Anyone would like to make a motion or either to approve or to table?
I'd move to approve a $5,000 match for the Forest Restoration Project Development AIM grant application.
Do we have a section?
A second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Macy?
Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Danforth,
Yes.
Trustee Abt,
Yes.
Trustee Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover, Trustee Corvallin,
Yes.
and Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you for your time, and I will send you the final draft or the final copy of the grant application as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Maya.
Thank you.
All right, it's 10:19 and we've got another grant application here. Miranda, I think you're introducing this as well because Garrett had to depart, correct?
I had to jump off, so I'll cover this. The Town of Nederland is looking to apply for the Boulder County Zero Waste Grant. And after meeting, we felt like the best way to go about this was to do a rebate program for not just restaurants, but kind of food establishments to purchase recyclable to-go-ware. Boulder County is offering up to $15,000 to organizations for reuse, recycling, and composting. And what we'd like to do is that rebate program where we encourage businesses to purchase that recyclable to-go-ware, because what we identified, Macy did a ton of great work reaching out to food establishments and just learned that while many really do try to prioritize recyclable or compostable, oftentimes they're not able to in its entirety because of cost. And especially now in the pandemic, that's a big concern. So what we'd like to do is to be able to offer this program where they would go through a select vendor to purchase those items. And in addition, use these funds to be able to work on an education program about different recycling and reuse opportunities throughout Boulder County, and issues related to single-use bags and foam containers, that styrofoam containers. There is no match for this grant. However, we are going to present this to the NDDA tomorrow to see if they're open to doing a match. So really tonight, we're just asking if the Board of Trustees supports town in applying for this grant. This grant, it said it was due on the 5th, and there's a correction that actually is due on the 12th, and that is why this is coming before you tonight.
All right. Any questions for Miranda about this one? I'm going to throw this open here to everyone.
I don't really have any questions, but I think this is really important. Zero waste has been a town goal for at least a decade. It's another way of addressing climate change. We do a pretty darn good job as a community. The state is doing a dreadful job in terms of zero waste. And I think we have a lot of businesses who would love to take advantage of something like this. So I'm very supportive. I hope we can pass it tonight.
I agree.
Okay, let's see if the public has anything. If anyone from the public would like to weigh in on the zero waste grant opportunity, now would be your chance.
I'll chime in on that.
All right, please identify yourself and go for it.
Mike Reichert, Wild Bear Nature Center. I love hearing this. You guys have so many great things on the docket tonight. I know Wild Bear would definitely love to help in these efforts. And I think this is amazing opportunity, again, to push forward our sustainability goals, and take action on things that are affecting all of us. So fully supported from this side of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? Bring it back to the board. I think, yeah, I mean, I think this sounds like a great opportunity, especially with the fact that there's no match needed and fits with a lot of our goals. So, there any other comments from the board, or if someone would like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the grant application.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Macy?
Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Danforth,
Yes.
Trustee Apt,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover, Trustee Corvallin,
Yes.
Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Motion passes. Good luck with the grant application. All right, so that concludes our action items for this evening. We do have two discussion items, one regarding the utility base fees and the other regarding our town code. The time is now 10:24 p.m. So before we dive into either of these, I would look to the board if anyone would like to make a motion.
Mario, is that one of these is time sensitive and the other is not? Is that correct?
The base fees is not time sensitive. The building codes one, it would be very good to know that if town staff is on the right track prior to the public hearing upcoming. So I would propose if we seek to shorten the meeting a little bit, I would propose that we table or postpone the base fee discussion and tackle the building code this evening.
And do we have to move to postpone that?
I think that for the record to have a motion that this is being postponed.
Yeah.
So I would like to motion to postpone that discussion before we extend the meeting.
Okay, motion to postpone the utility base fee discussion.
I
Motion
second
to
the
postpone
motion.
the utility base fee discussion, yes.
I
Sorry.
second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Macy?
Trustee Apt.
Yes.
Trustee Danforth.
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Mayor Larson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover. Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Corvallin.
Yes.
Okay, that item is postponed.
This is Trustee
motion to
Taylor. I
extend
move
the
that we.
meeting. Sorry.
I'll take this, Eric. I move that we extend the meeting to 11 o'clock.
And I will second Trustee Taylor's motion.
We have a motion and a second. Macy, yet again.
Okay. So Trustee Coombs Ismail
Yes.
and Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Apt.
No.
Trustee Danforth.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover. Trustee Corvallin.
Yes.
And Mayor Larson.
Yes. Okay, Miranda, take it away.
All right, so at the last meeting on October 19th, we reviewed this ordinance and the Board of Trustees it was asked that we look into the following: the depth for sewer lines, occupancy requirement under the International Residential Code, section 304 and 305, identifying the threshold where sprinklers would be required, making homes EV and solar ready. I'm sorry, I duplicated myself there. Here are our updates, and what we're just looking for is confirmation we're heading in the right direction. First thing is that sewer depths, and I apologize, the original name had feet, but it is 12 inches, which was the Public Works recommendation. We'd like to keep it that way, and that's reflected in the International Plumbing Code. For the occupancy requirements, this was one that Ron Mitchell had brought up. Safebuild is recommending no changes to the IRC. Those two sections of code have been in there forever, and there is the minimum requirement is really for health and sanitation purposes. I do know that one of the concerns may have been in regards to tiny homes or alternative housing structures, and that is covered in the Appendix Q of the International Residential Code. As for sprinkler threshold, Fire Marshal Henriksen and Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover were able to connect. And there was a discussion that there would be an exception to the sprinkler requirement for buildings that are 400 square feet or less. And so that clarification was added to page 9 of the draft ordinance. There was discussion about solar ready homes, and those requirements are actually already throughout the International Residential Code, the Energy Code, in these different appendices. So we provided links to those. There was a lot of discussion today amongst the committee about EV ready versus capable. There was a bit of misunderstanding on my end what we landed on. So hence you'll see the red throughout. We are proposing EV capable. And on page 19, we will need to make that correction that we're talking EV capable. But we're looking at that for detached or attached single family new build homes, and also a dedicated parking space requirement, which is outlined here, and you'll see that on page 19 of the draft ordinance. The one recommendation that is not in the building code ordinance is the recommendation that 25% of parking spaces for multifamily new builds be EV capable. And it's because that typically doesn't go into a building code ordinance. That would be a zoning code that we would change. Parking is not typically a part of building codes. So the questions really before you tonight is really, do you have questions about what we're doing and the path town staff are on? And then also, do you recommend town staff amending chapter 16 to add in that 25% parking space for multifamily to be EV capable?
Miranda, may I speak?
Yes, please.
I would just like to note where the 25% number came from. The original requirements, and I'm forgetting the exact document I was reading, but it was related to these building codes, was encouraging 5% EV charging capabilities, was recommending EV charging capabilities for 5% of the parking spaces in any parking lot. And my argument was, we're building these things and they're going to last 20 years. And if 20 years from now, only 5% of automobiles are electric, we're done for. So I proposed 25% because it means that within an apartment complex, you could have every single family driving an EV, and those families could cooperate to share chargers to charge for every fourth night. And generally that'll work for most EVs. That was why I proposed 25%, and that's why I'm encouraging that we accept that as our standard.
That was my major question in this document, and it has been answered.
Magnificent. Tanya, any thoughts?
No, that clarified it for me. That just means, what does that mean? Having electricity available outside, or is it like
Absolutely.
that's
yes.
all it is?
There are a number of ways to do this, of course. Posts coming up out of the ground, covered
Right.
parking with posts coming down from above. And I was proposing EV ready, which means you'd have a 240 volt outlet there. But I was told that 240 volt outlets may not be what we use in 10 years. Since we've been using the same 240 volt outlets for 50 years, I was suggesting that we would, but I gave in, I acquiesced. So we're going EV capable. And what that means, everyone, is that we're requiring that people make sure there is enough capacity in that building's breaker box, and that there be conduits running to where the plugs would be installed. So that's what we're requiring.
That's really easy. That's no big deal. Yeah. Got it. I would just say leave it then.
Yeah, on that component. So if we moved forward with the ordinance as written, what we would do is we would bring back a separate ordinance about that 25%. It would not be in place as of 1/1, which is what we're recommending for the 2018 building code. But we do feel confident we could bring that quickly to you to review for adoption, for implementation later in the first month or two of next year.
Okay.
Lindsay?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Alan?
I'm very supportive of the 25% EV capable, and overall, I think these are ready to go.
All right. Eric, you chimed in that was your one question. Was that your only one? The one that was answered?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to see the sprinkler threshold square footage to be that low. But I mean, if that's what it came to in discussions, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. It sounds like we're pretty in good agreement with the direction this is going, and it's ready to come back for the public hearing at the next meeting.
Hold up. Eric, what was the number of square footage you wanted for the sprinkler system?
No, it wasn't what I wanted. It was just the conversation we had with Mayor Pro Tem Baumhofer last time.
Oh, right. 420 by 20.
I think that matches up with the tiny house, because the tiny house is a dwelling that's 400 square feet, and I bet you that's why that was chosen then, right?
Yeah. sensible.
Rick, I believe Rick is still on if you wanted him to jump in with further clarification. Yep, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, that's exactly why I proposed that number. Jonathan and I talked about a couple, not specific numbers, but lots of factors involved. And he'd mentioned at a previous meeting, looking at some other factors. And we talked a bit about what those might be. And we really couldn't come to any kind of conclusion because no one's used anything other than square footage for that. So it's something that we'll continue to have dialogue about, and possibly at some time in the future, we may look at other factors in a house's construction that might move that number. But we'll just have to, see where that goes with further discussion down the line.
Okay. All right. Well, I think then we're all set for our public hearing next week on this. And unless Miranda, Jennifer, any further questions or clarification you need from us on this one?
No, I think that's it. I didn't know if you were going to take public comment.
Oh, yeah, we can take public comment. Yeah, discussion item. So if anyone would like to, from the public would like to speak on this, now would be your opportunity.
So we have one from Kathleen Chabai. I'll read. Kathleen Chabai, 30-year resident, East Magnolia, 18-year business owner. The IBC creates conflict with the history of the Nederland Municipal Code when it comes to change of use. It also infringes property owners' use by right, waters down the purpose of zoning, and currently enables staff to unfairly selectively enforce. The conflict includes all Nederland property owners. Change of use in net historically meant you wanted to use the property for something that was not zoned use by right. In order to use the property for something that is zoned for, a person has to go through a special review use, SRU, which requires public hearings and a BOT vote for permission to undertake the use and or be denied. Yeah, in the IBC, change of use is used interchangeably with change of occupancy. I first noticed how misapply a change of use special review use to the Brain Freeze that operated where the cannabis shop is now on the corner of West First. The Brain Freeze building is zoned use by right for residential and food, restaurants, bars. The town decided a new business moving in was a change of use because even though their use was zoned use by right, there were new occupants, and the IBC uses the terminology change of use and change of occupancy interchangeably. Then Raven moved her use by right retail business out of East First in March of 2020. And when Josh Pepper just tried to move his use by right retail business in, town staff forced him to fill out an application and pay $75 for a town building permit application and call it change in occupancy requirement from the IBC. The IBC change of use is used interchangeably with the use of occupancy. What is the point in zoning if everyone uses use by right? If everyone's use by right isn't actually use by right anymore? Town fails to acknowledge that the IBC uses change of use and change of occupancy interchangeably, and then requires an IBC change of use, change of occupancy building permit payment from people who are zoned use by right. And then we have Trustee Danforth, who conveniently now required a change of occupancy when she moved out of her home she lived in and turned it into a rental. My co-complaint on this unfair and selective, in this case, non-enforcement was never clarified, rectified. Why were Brain Freeze and Josh Pepper's zoning use by right infringed on and Trustee Danforth not? Nor have my questions about why town's not clarifying the distinction between the town's history of what zoning use by right means, since IBC change of occupancy terminology is selectively being misused to mean any occupant is required to file and pay application and fees in order to open when they have a use by right per net zoning.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public want to comment?
Yeah, this is Billy Giblin. How are you?
Go for it, Billy.
I just want to say thanks. I appreciate being part of. I was able to be part of the discussions we had on Wednesday, the 27th, on this effort with the building code, and appreciate being part of that. Felt like it was good discussion, and we ended up with some good results. And appreciate also today. I noticed a couple things and reached out to Miranda and Julian and Garrett, and we were able to correct those for you tonight. And just kind of, yeah, I appreciate the EV capable. It was Dan from Safe Built that brought up the, and he's a master electrician, that brought up the possibility, if not likelihood, that technology may change with the way things are wired, and so having conduit, having basically places set up to be capable of EV is a realistic requirement. We felt like at this point, and in the due time, people would take the next step to EV ready or EV installed, as they needed it, basically, and it would just help with the cost of building up front. And just one more thing I point out, I pointed out in our meeting there on Wednesday, on the 27th, but solar ready and EV capable are more or less equivalent. It's kind of weird because they use different terms for the two applications, but basically both of them, you're setting the house up with kind of the bones to take on either a solar array later or EV charging later. And it's really the best time to do it at the time of construction. It's a lot cheaper than doing it later. So I appreciate being part of this, and I'm pleased with how it turned out.
Thanks, Billy. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mike Reichert, Wild Bear Nature Center.
All right, Mike.
Might as well comment if I'm still on. No, this is amazing. Again, I think it stamps the town with what needs to happen on a wider scale. And as an EV owner, I use the town chargers pretty regularly. They're becoming harder and harder to get space because more and more people are going this route. And anytime I'm plugging in front of town, generally visitors want to ask, questions about EVs. So we're educating the public again, just by being users. So this is incredible. So as again, public side, I'm all for this. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else? All right, we'll bring it back to the board, and we will bring this back for public hearing in 1 week time. Any members of the board have any other business they want to bring up before us this evening?
So sorry, but I do.
All right, take it away.
And that is that I've been talking with town staff about finding more time for the board to discuss things in advance of business meetings. I feel like having the discussion on the fly in a business meeting often leads to misunderstandings, especially over WebEx, where it's difficult to read, what exactly is going on. And I do think that for certain issues, we really do need to have more of that information laid out in advance, and maybe even have that discussion or start that discussion in advance. And so one of the ideas that was brought up was potentially having a standing work session once per month on the Tuesday between the two meetings. And while I recognize, and I myself am sort of loath to fix my schedule in that way, to have another Tuesday evening taken up, I do think it would be more productive overall in business meetings to just get business done, and maybe in work sessions do more of the conversational discussion. So that's my sort of proposal to you all.
Yeah, I think we'd been talking about this, and we'd kicked around the idea of trying to kick this off, as it were, in December, right?
Yep.
I think, I'm a little more hesitant now given the popping cases, but I think I'm very supportive of the idea because, yeah, trying to coordinate discussions over WebEx, it's just, it's difficult.
Yep.
So Yeah, let's look at, possibly doing that kickoff at would that be then the third Tuesday or the intervening Tuesday of December, but maybe hold off on determining it until we see in the next week or so what the caseload looks like, and if we get over this hump we're still climbing right now.
I'm confused. What are you proposing? In-person meeting for an hour before the real meeting?
So no, so I was hoping not to make gigantic nights by having it in the hour before a regular business meeting, and instead maybe just have a standing work session. This would not be required attendance in my sort of
Well, I'm
idea
not
of this.
that comfortable with in person, and I'm not.
No, I also wasn't even necessarily thinking in person, but I mean, in person would be, from my perspective, would be great. I assumed we would continue doing it through WebEx, but we would simply have more time and space to talk about upcoming agenda items and get the discussion started before we kind of all get blindsided by people's opinions.
How's that going to save us any time if we're going to be spending 2 hours?
It's going to save us time in the business meeting. It's not going to save us time overall.
Gotcha. Is it open to the public? It needs to be, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Open to the public work sessions.
I mean, I could see that maybe for certain issues. I see what you're saying. What I also struggle with is never getting anything new proposed. It's always just taking care of all the business, and nothing new gets or creative is being created by us. So I see what you mean about getting together more often, so that we're not just like at the end of this day, I had some other business in my head too, but I don't feel like talking about it, And I get what you're saying. I mean, I'm not opposed. If it's online, it's more, I have more flexibility with it, with my time, because it's just, and as for you too, as you know, to juggling stuff. So I'm more prone to be able to do it if it's online, but.
I also would hope that in many of the months that this work session is scheduled, it is canceled because there's nothing that dramatic to talk about. Like I don't imagine that we'd have to do this every single month, but there just have been some, just to have a standing work session that's sort of on the schedule that we use for upcoming agenda items that are more complicated, so that we can start talking through it before the actual business meeting, where I think things get messy.
Yeah, where people are tired. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm open to the possibility.
I have a question. When are we having the intergovernmental agreement discussion with the county?
That Trustee Taylor and Trustee Coombs Ismail will meet with them on the 29th of November.
When?
The 29th, yeah, of November, and then we can bring back at the December meeting an update of what came out of that conversation.
I thought we were going to have like a work session that kind of like gives us some backstory on it.
So that could definitely be an opportunity to then do a work session on the second Tuesday of the month.
Look at that.
I kind of feel like this. He's talking about a standing one. I feel like this is a big issue that deserves its own work session after, so, but yeah, we probably have that every month. But yeah, anyway, I'm open to this one for sure.
Yeah, I guess I just
we could use that standing work session. Sorry.
Yeah, excuse me. Just wanted to make a request that one of the things on the agenda be the gold cross, the Cross Gold Mine. This is a project that was approved 10 years ago, and it's 70,000 tons of ore per year are approved to be processed up there, 200 tons per day. They're ramping this up. In our last IGA meeting, this never came up, and this is a major industrial project, 5 miles. I just think it's something that we want to make sure is being carefully regulated by the county and the state and the EPA, so we don't end up polluting our watershed and having some disaster occur at some point in the future. And I'm not saying that it is a disaster or anything's going wrong, but I think it's important that this be on the agenda that we discuss with the county.
I think it's a topic we need to discuss with the county, independent of the IGA. I think this is just
Yeah.
something we need to make sure that they're, communicating with us about.
Yeah, and the state as well. I mean,
Yep.
it appears that the county is a regulator, but the state is the regulator.
Hmm.
And the EPA is also involved. So we want to make sure that these agencies are on point.
Well, especially in light of the very disappointing outcome of the Gross Dam expansion. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that the idea that we can simply trust the county is well and truly debunked after that.
Oh my God, he sold out for $12 million.
Yeah, and I think, this mine was approved in 2011. It's the year that we moved here. So I don't know if there was a public process in Nederland as part of the process, part of the decision, but I can't find anybody who remembers anything about it. So anyway, appreciate it.
Anything else from anyone?
I move that we adjourn.
I second that.
We have motion in multiple seconds. Macy.
Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Abt,
Yes.
Trustee Danforth,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover, Trustee Corvallin,
Yes.
Trustee Kuhn says smile.
Yes, please.
Meeting adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Job.
Take care.
Good night.